want to put aside my written statement for a moment and address one of the points that was brought up, I think an important point by the ranking member, that this body ought to be concerning itself with with issues that impact directly the American people. The rising price of groceries, 76% over the past 2 years for basic food stuff, the war in Ukraine, the inflation issues, the border issues, many, many other issues that concern us all as a nation. We can't do that without the First Amendment, without debate. When I gave my speech, my announcement speech in Boston 2 months ago, YouTube, I talked about all those issues. I focused on grocery. I focused on the fact that working class people can no longer afford to live in this country. I talked about inflation, all the issues that deeply concern you and that you've devoted your career to alleviating those issues. 5 minutes into my speech, when I was talking about Paul Revere, YouTube deplatformed me. I didn't talk about vaccines in that speech. I didn't talk about anything that was a verboten subject. I just was talking about my campaign and things, the conversation that we ought to be having with each other as Americans. But I was shut down. And that is why the First Amendment's important. Debate, congenial, respectful debate is the fertilizer, it's the water, it's the sunlight for our democracy. We need to be talking to each other. Now, this is a letter that many of you signed, many of my fellow Democrats. I've spent my life in this party. I've devoted my life to the values of this party. This 102 people signed this. This itself is evidence of the problem that this hearing was convened to address. This is an attempt to censor a censorship hearing. The charges in this, and by the way, censorship is antithetical to our party. It was appalling to my father, to my uncle, to FDR, to Harry Truman, to Thomas Jefferson, as the chairman referred to. It is the basis for democracy. It sets us apart from all of the previous forms of government. We need to be able to talk, and the First Amendment was not written for easy speech. It was written for the speech that nobody likes you for. And I was censored not just by the Democratic administration, I was censored by the Trump administration. I was the first person censored by as the chairman pointed out, by the Biden administration 2 days after it came into office. It ordered a truthful, and by the way, they had to invent a new word called malinformation to censor people like me. There was no misinformation on my Instagram account. Everything I put on that account was cited and sourced to peer-reviewed publications or government databases. Nobody has ever pointed to a single piece of misinformation that I published. I was removed for something they called malinformation. Malinformation is information that is true, but is inconvenient to the government, that they don't want people to hear. And that's antithetical to the values of our country. After I announced my presidency, it became more difficult for people to censor Israel. I have a better record on Israel than anybody in this chamber today. I'm the only person who has publicly objected to the $2 billion payout that the Biden administration is now making to Iran, which is a genocidal program. I'm the only one who's objected to that. I fought more ferociously for Israel than anybody. But I am being censored here through this target, through smears, through misinterpretations of what I've said, through lies, through association, which is a tactic that we all thought we had been discredited and dispensed with after the Army McCarthy hearings in the 1950s. But those same weapons are now being deployed against me to silence me. I know many of the people who wrote this letter. I don't believe there's a single person who signed this letter who believes I'm anti-Semitic. I do not believe that. There is no evidence of that. Now, I want to say something I think that's more important, and it goes directly to what you talked about, ranking member, which is the need, this toxic polarization that is destroying our country today. And how do we deal with that? This kind of division is more dangerous for our country than any time since the American Civil War. And how do we deal with that? How are we going to, every Democrat on this committee believes that we need to end that polarization. Do you think you can do that by censoring people? I'm telling you, you cannot. That only aggravates and amplifies the problem. We need to start being kind to each other. We need to start being respectful to each other. We need to start restoring the comedy to this chamber and to the rest of America, but it has to start here. My uncle, Edward Kennedy, has more legislation with his name on it than any senator in United States history. Why is that? Because he was able to reach across the aisle, because he didn't deal in insults, because he didn't try to censor people. He brought home people who were antithetical to what he believed in. He came home almost every weekend with people like Orrin Hatch to our house at the compound in Hyannisport. At that time, Orrin Hatch to me was like Darth Vader, because I was an environmentalist. And I was saying, why is Teddy bringing this guy home? But he knew that he was effective because he understood that comedy and respect and kindness and compassion and empathy for other people is the way that the only way to restore the function in this chamber.
Welcome to a special edition of the Nick and CJ Show panel edition. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', my friends, my family? It's great to be back on YouTube. That is, the real ones been watching on Rumble. And if you just now catching up to RBN because we've been banned for the last few days, I gotta say, you guys missed an absolute banger yesterday. If you one of the YouTube only people, you guys missed a banger. We had Dr. Cornel West on, 2-hour deep conversation. We're gonna post the live stream on YouTube here soon, so you guys can check it out. But man, good to be back on both platforms, because there are people who they love their YouTube, so it's good to reach as many people as possible. So lots to break down today. You got a lot of great guests as well, so that's great.
Yeah, we have a panel either Wednesdays and Thursdays. We're gonna try to bring. Sometimes Friday, it might be a Friday panel because I think you and I did that before. But we're gonna try to bring panels maybe once a week, because we want to involve more comrades. We want to involve more voices in some of these.
Can I answer this question,
discussions? CJ? Yeah, go ahead.
For the people who don't know, and I'm glad that YouTube reversed one of the strikes, because the RBN community put their boot on their necks, right? Because after the first strike, we was very cautious. We understood, like, all right, this authoritarian censorship regime make it so we can't cover COVID. That's just the reality of the situation. So we didn't do it. So since they're like, all right, we got to get RBN 2 more strikes, We got to give them 2 more strikes,
Yeah.
and they're not doing anything strike worthy yet. So we got to look back in their library. And they went back and found a video we did, and I don't even know what we said because they never clarified. But the topic was we were talking about a COVID study, a cannabis and COVID study, right? So I'm like, what the fuck could we possibly have said that could have been against the guidelines? So we had the audacity to report on a study with no warning, just straight up strikes. Back in the day, before RBN was big, CJ remember, before RBN was big and before it was a threat, they would just pull down the YouTube. They would just pull off straight down. No strikes, anything. They were like, no, we're taking this shit down. We'd be like, God damn it, but it should be gone. But now that we big, now we get strikes with no warnings. No warnings. Just get a strike on the old video we make a year ago. So they know it was bullshit. Our community knew it was bullshit. So I'm glad that you guys made noise for us and they overturned that one strike. The other strike needed to be overturned too, because we just had the audacity to play an opinion of someone at the EU on vaccines. And I believe they were like a doctor, a scientist, someone smarter than me.
Martin.
Someone smarter than me, right? And we played a clip of him speaking. So we keep getting banned for covering shit. Like, it's not like we out here saying radical, crazy ass shit. We cover what other people say and we get in trouble. Anyway, we can introduce our guest, CJ. I just want to answer that question just for people who haven't.
Yeah, let me add to that too, because when it happened, man, we was like, damn, this is it. This is like we was playing the song. We was like, oh, this is it for us, because they're gonna find something else. Because literally, this video, Nick, was in January of 2022. You're talking about a year and a half. And then we had to go back and was like, what other videos we have with COVID in it? Let's just delete that shit, even though it was good content.
Yeah, I think we deleted
like
everything.
The other stuff was good. Just delete all of that shit, because we're in panic mode. But it looks like the pressure that our community, and shout out to Kit from Heartlands Media, because he's been through this 8 different times, 8 different strikes. He knew exactly what to do. He was like, submit your thing and then get your people, your community involved on all the social media platforms. Have them tag Team YouTube, have them tag Creator YouTube. So everybody was tweeting, hey, this is bullshit. Everybody was tweeting that, retweeting, literally over 600. If you count the retweets, literally over 600. It was pressure.
Yeah, it was a crazy response. And we appreciate that. That's the people who emailed, tagged YouTube and everything. But it still highlight how crazy of a situation we are and how we are living in a fascist state where corporation and state completely merge to censor opposition voices. Have you guys ever explained this to someone who don't follow politics? Because people in my family know what I do now. So over the last 2 days, I just explained to them. I was talking to my sister, and I was like, "Yo, so my YouTube got banned." She's like, "What you do? What you gonna do?" I'm like, "No, we reported on the study. It was a study about COVID and cannabis." And then she was like, looking at me confused. She's like, "And what?" I was like, "No, we got banned for reporting on the study." And then she was like, "Wait, what? They can do that? Like ordinary people,
they don't have any clue."
Hilarious.
Yeah, they don't have any clue of the censorship. Yeah, go ahead, Nick. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, CJ, but my roommate also was like, "Man, that's crazy. I didn't even know they fucking do shit like that." So, like, most Americans are not for this. This is only radical liberal ideology. And that's why it's funny to mention to people in my family, like, God, I got banned on reporting on the study, and they don't understand it. They're like, what? It's confusing as shit to them. Their reaction, CJ, you should do it too for anyone who just hey, bring it up. Be like, what? But anyway, go ahead, we can.
They'll be like, they'll probably be like, that can't be it. You sure you didn't say nothing? It speaks to, Nick, why people fall for the idea that NATO is a good guy. Why people fall for the idea that Joe Biden is our union president. Like, it is an inability. It's partly because of propaganda. It's an inability for the vast majority of people to understand the level of corruption that their government participated. It's so beyond the understanding of a person. Like, if you tell them, like, just say, you'll be good if you just go like this. This is your motto. Whatever the United States says is a fucking lie. You start from that point, and you're going to be pretty good. They don't understand it. They're like, what do you mean? They don't lie about everything. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Everything. So Yeah, so it's been a crazy almost 48 hours, but we can bring in our guests, and this is an all-star panel that we have. I'll kind of introduce them all, then bring them in. We have Colin and he's been a regular for the last 4 weeks. I think consistently he's been joining us. Colin is from the Indie News Network, and he's going to be joining us. And I'm actually going to be doing a radio show tonight with Misty, and I'm saying that with Indie News Network because they kind of help produce the show. So I'll be on the radio show with Misty today, actually right after this show. So around 6 p.m. Eastern. And then we have, of course, Professor Anthony, and he is professor out of he's a social worker and a professor out of Columbia University and Adelphi University. And then last but not least, of course, we have Jay, aka Apollo, and he's just a friend, a comrade, part of the community. He actually is part of our back office team. He helps us a lot with some of our social media. So let's bring in now. I don't see your cameras on, so I'm going to assume you're not ready to come in, so I won't bring you in. But here goes Colin. What's up, Colin?
What's up, Nick? How you doing? CJ, how you doing? Shout out RBN. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. And then I see Jay, aka Apollo's camera is now on, so I'll bring in Apollo too. What's up, Apollo?
Hey guys, how's it going? Doing well right here. But thank you for having me on. Looking forward to a great panel.
Awesome. And then last but not least, I do see Professor Anthony's camera on. And let's bring in Anthony here. What's up, Professor? How are you doing today?
Hey, everyone. Happy to be here. Happy to see everybody here. And hello to all the people watching RBN right now.
Absolutely. And what I want to do, Nick, I'm going to have you in the middle. I know there's one of these stories you were tweeting about a lot. I don't want to give it away to the audience. But after we do this first story, actually, I could say you've been tweeting a lot about a couple of things. The Kyle Kulinski
there's a lot of
story. Yeah, you've been tweeting a lot.
There's been a lot on my mind, man. We've been banned on YouTube for a few days. There's been a lot I've been fucking wanting to say. Right?
Yeah,
we still have
and
to
the
cover
censorship story.
American NATO, but we may do that. I may set it for Friday. But go ahead, CJ.
No, I was going to say in the censorship story with the Democrats censoring RFK Jr. This is amazing. This is a censorship trial or a hearing on censorship, and the Democrats decide to put up a motion to censor RFK. So we're going to be covering that. So Nick, if you could start with, because I like how you preface the stories, but first let me go over all the stories we're going to go after to kind of give you a little bit of time to set that up. I just want you to preface what's happening on Capitol Hill in just a second, but let me toss up the graphics so everybody can see what some of the topics for today. And of course, one of the main topics that we're going to be covering, and we started with the video, is RFK Jr. on Capitol Hill during testifying on a committee. I think it's weaponization of the FBI or weaponization of something. But he's testifying today, and we're going to be covering that. Then there's also another hearing, I think it's going on in the same place or in Capitol Hill too, and that's the Hunter Biden laptop story hearing. And there's a reporter that's up on Capitol Hill testifying to that. Then we have Kyle Kulinski chiming in on something with Cornell West, and it's pretty dumb, so we'll cover that. Then there's a couple of things about Nina Turner. Nina Turner versus the Libertarian Party, I think it's of New Hampshire. I mean, they're saying some pretty freaking racist shit to her, and we'll kind of cover that. But she also had Cornel West on, and of course she asked him if he's going to be running as a Democrat, so we'll be covering that along with a couple of other smaller stories. But that's what we're going to be covering today with our panel. So Nick, I'm going to pass it to you to kind of get us started with the stories here. Go ahead.
So I was watching a bit of the RFK hearing. I actually had to get my car worked on today. That's why I was tweeting so much, because I was bored as hell at the car shop.
I've been.
That was all right. I'm all listening to this. That's why I was tweeting. I was at the dealership using the Wi-Fi. Like shit, I'm all tweet my head off right now. So I watched the hearing, and like it if you want to show anyone why you should never vote for Democrats, show them this hearing. This was cuckoo for Cocoa Puff shit right here, because it was one party that was standing for free speech, and then the other party that was making two arguments at the same time that made no sense. So they made one argument where they said, no, RFK is actually lying. We did not censor him. Then the second argument they was making is, hey, but if we did censor him, we should anyway. So they was arguing for censorship while also denying the fact that they were censoring RFK. It was completely incoherent argument. In order to pull that off, they came off as unhinged. Like, they made Republicans, people like Jim Jordan, a guy who I usually can't even stand watching because he's repulsive. They was making them seem logical, because there was points where this unqualified black bourgeoisie bootlicker was pretty much calling for the censorship of RFK. I try to get her name, Stacey. You gotta know her, Stacey Plackett. Like, she's literally one of the biggest Democratic operative Simpson that's part of these panels. And we're gonna get to this later, and she defends censorship of RFK, but she was like interrupting him, being extremely rude. And it's funny because there was a moment in the hearing that I saw where Jim Jordan was like, "Will you stop censoring him? Stop censoring him." He's like, "I'm not censoring him." He's like, "Yes, you are." She's like, "I'm not censoring him. You just interrupting him constantly." So the entire time you have assholes, the asshole Republicans that are looking good just because the Democrats are unbelievably unhinged. And then you gotta remember, they also put in this guy on trial, and we played a little bit of intro video. We played a little bit of this clip I found. You hear RFK, and we got many disagreements regarding him and Israel. Like, we roast him quite a bit on that, especially him running as a Democrat. But they talking about censorship. So one of the reasons why I was successful debating on the Hill was because they were debating Venezuela with me. Like, you debating my strength. You understand? The reason why Destiny died in 20 minutes because he was trying to debate me on whether the United States was a fascist country or not. You're debating me on a disadvantage, and that's part of good strategy, picking and choosing your battles, right? So Democratic Party decides to go after RFK on censorship, something that's going to turn off most Americans. So they have a guy that he has a lot of ideas that may turn off Americans on many different topics. Me personally, it's Iran and Israel, right? But instead, they pick a topic that makes him seem reasonable. He's like, "Hey guys, can you just not censor me?" Very reasonable request, right? So with that said, I'm gonna show this video and I'm gonna get the panel's thoughts on this.
I was censored not just by the Democratic administration. I was censored by the Trump administration. I was the first person censored as the chairman pointed out, by the Biden administration.
So there's a poll I'm gonna show you guys later where, despite the narrative, a surprising amount of Joe Biden supporters like RFK Jr. What? No, that's what the polling says. Now imagine you're a liberal who not into social media and you're watching this and you hear RFK say this. He was also censored under the Trump administration. Now that's a great move by RFK because shitload watching this like, wait, Trump censored him? You guys see the strategy? Now Democrats got to explain why they're okay with Trump censoring RFK. Feel free to try me anytime. I'm going to play that part again. I'll let it play a little bit longer.
I was censored not just by the Democratic administration. I was censored by the Trump administration. I was the first person censored as the chairman pointed out, by the Biden administration 2 days after it came into office. It ordered a truthful, and by the way, they had to invent a new word called malinformation to censor people like me. There was no misinformation on my Instagram account. Everything I put on that account was cited and sourced to peer-reviewed publications or government databases. Nobody has ever pointed to a single piece of misinformation that I published. I was removed for something they called malinformation. Malinformation is information that is true, but is inconvenient to the government that they don't want people to hear. And that's antithetical to the values of our country. After I announced my presidency, it became more difficult for people to censor me outright. So now I'm subject to this new form of censorship, which is called targeted propaganda, where people apply pejoratives like anti-vax. I've never been anti-vaccine, but everybody in this room probably believes that I have been, because that's the prevailing narrative. Anti-Semitism, racism, these are the most appalling, disgusting pejoratives, and they're applied to me to silence me, because people don't want me to have that conversation about the war, about groceries, about inflation, about the war on the middle class in this country that we need to be having. And by the way, I want to say this.
Now, that's a great point by RFK, because I see a tweet by Emma talking about how he's running this crazy anti-vax campaign. And this is a point that RFK makes all the time. He's like, I'm not even running on my vaccine policies. The reason why we keep talking about it because you guys keep bringing it up. I got all these other things I want to talk about. Like RFK, he's running to be president of Israel right now. Like, what the fuck you guys talking about? He ain't run for a Democratic Party nomination. He run for the APAC nomination. So RFK's like, nigga, I'm trying to talk about going to war with Iran. Nigga, I'm trying to back Israel, but you guys talking about vaccines, right? But I'm gonna get a panel in. We almost done with the clip. I guess I'll let finish. You guys see almost just a few more seconds. I want to get the panel in here after you finish.
I'm on the record that in my entire life, and why I'm under oath, in my entire life, I have never uttered a phrase that was either racist or anti-Semitic.
So
I want to get
now,
a panel in.
Yeah, we'll go to Anthony and then Colin and then Apollo. But my reaction specifically, because there's so much in this, so I guess we'll take it a piece at a time. We knew RFK had been getting censored because every time he had something taken down, it was sort of a big thing on Twitter. Oh, he had this video taken down. He had that video taken down. I don't understand if the Democratic establishment and all of their big tech censorships, do they understand the same effect they're doing with Trump? They're going to have with RFK. Trump with indictment, and his polling is going up. He's raising good money. You're going after RFK, censoring him. That it's like an underdog effect where people are like, your human sort of reaction is to root for somebody that everybody's sort of like jumping on or pummeling or like piling on, and that's the effect I think they're gonna have with RFK. He's not gonna bring his poll numbers down. I think he's gonna hover at 20%, if not go up to 25%. But let's go to Anthony and then Colin and then Apollo. Oh, you're muted. If you want to unmute yourself once.
Why?
There you go.
Why can't I remember to do that? It's the censorship industrial complex. And the mainstream media does it by not allowing the discussion of anything outside the prescribed bounds of what we're allowed to talk about. And then, YouTube, Google does it too. I mean, Google is synonymous with internet search. It's only a search engine. There's a bunch of them, but we use that most of the time. Google censors results or puts them all the way down on the second page so you can't see them. YouTube, obviously, we know what YouTube, it's done it to you. It's done it to others. And, and what's happening with RFK. And here's the thing too, like I'll post about RFK Jr. and he says some things I agree with. And the attack trolls will be like, you support RFK. Well, first of all, I'm not supporting RFK for president, but I support his right to run for president. And when anybody, if Joe Biden came out tomorrow and said, I'm going to do everything I can to get Medicare for all passed, I would be like, I agree with that. Like, I don't care who the person is, if they're saying the right thing.
How dare you be an adult and have nuance? Like that's
you're
not allowed on Twitter.
And it doesn't, there could be an artist out there where I like one of the songs, doesn't mean I'm going to the concert, right? like a lot of music. I feel like COVID was where everybody, I thought Trump was where everybody's heads exploded. It was COVID. Trump was nothing compared to this. Like, you couldn't even, I lost some leftist friends. I didn't lose them, but like they blocked me. Some leftist friends. By the way, I'm vaxxed. I'm fully vaxxed, whatever that means these days. I guess not fully vaxxed because I haven't gotten 18 boosters, but I'm vaxxed. We decided to get my mom, who's older, she agreed to be vaxxed, whatever, a couple of years back. Listen, to ask questions about safety is really disturbing. It's very interesting that the person I saw ripping into RFK Jr. And proposing that he get removed from the hearing was Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was in charge of the DNC. She was the chair of the DNC when they encouraged the media to censor Bernie. The Democrats used to be the party of the ACLU and free speech. Famous debate many years ago when Michael Dukakis was running against George H. No, who was he? Jesus, who was Dukakis running against? It was George H.W. Bush.
Okay. Yeah, H. Yeah, it was H.
And he lost to him in '88. Yeah, and Bush, who was mild compared to the conservatives today, Bush looked at him and said, "You're a card-carrying member of the ACLU." Well, listen, the ACLU, which stands for free speech, and look, there's some issues with every organization. The Democrats have now moved 180 degrees to the party of censorship, where they want to censor anyone who questions the narrative. If you're, I guess my takeaway is this: if you are confident in your facts, you don't mind questions, especially if you can prove those are crazy questions. You'll say, well, of course this isn't the case. Side note, I listened to the entire segment that they put out of RFK's off the records conversation. Sounded to me like he was referring to a study that suggested that certain, and by the way, I'm not endorsing this. I've never read the study. I don't know anything about it. I'm conscious of your YouTube channel privileges. I want to keep them, so you don't get kicked off again. The vaccine is safe and effective, right? And please understand that. And we all need to do everything we can. Blah blah blah. But the point is, the study suggested that certain ethnicities may be more likely to get sick and infected than other ethnicities. And he was linking that to a conversation on the fact that countries such as the United States and China are supposedly, I haven't seen the evidence, working on bioweapons that can target to certain races, because some ethnicities do have genetic markers that are unique to them. For instance, some ethnicities are more likely to have sickle cell or Tay-Sachs disease, things like that. So he was referring to it. Whoever his advisors are should probably say, look, never refer to anything like that, even in a private conversation. It's a bad idea. But
the thing on that, I'll pass right back to you, Zinkis, but this is why I don't understand. And I keep asking this question on why disagreements over public health is this automatic red line thing. So, for example, if he quotes this study, why is that offensive? And once again, I'm black, and if someone says and they quoting a study that said that COVID-19 or whatever is more likely to affect one race versus the other, I'm like, I don't know if that's true, but I want to hear the debate as someone who don't know about science. I want to hear a smart motherfucker bring him on, talk about why that's stupid as hell. Why is that worth banning someone over? Why is that worth censoring someone over? Even if he's wrong, who gives a fuck if he's wrong? That's why I don't understand the culture. But go ahead, Zink, because I just want to.
I think that's the final point that you made is the point that I'll go to, because again, I haven't read the study. I'm curious. When I get some time, I'll look at it. And one study doesn't really mean too much, but it might be interesting to find out what he was referring to. Here's the deal. Again, if you're confident with your facts, and they are not, because the facts kept changing. Don't wear masks. Wear masks. You need 1 shot. You need 2 shots. You need 5. Like, it was this whole, like, I don't know what to do. You know, I remember wiping all the things down I would get from the store. It would take 20 minutes and make me want to jump out a window. Like, we did all that stuff, right? And then they were like, oh, you don't got to wipe stuff down. Like, their information kept changing. But if you're confident in what you think of as facts, you'll entertain any question. Because if something isn't correct, it's easily refuted. And you would want to do that, as to Nick's point, because you would want people to learn. Listen, you might think this crazy thing, here's why it's not true. When they won't allow debate, it's because they have nothing to stand on. And I remember, Joseph Biden 2 summers ago at a CNN town hall saying, if you get the vaccine, you won't get the virus and you won't get sick. And even with the information available then, that was a lie. That was misinformation. It was not true. The research showed it was not true. The vaccine may be safe and effective, remember, and it might do all these other things, but it absolutely wasn't even tested. Pfizer admitted this for transmission. That's not what they were.
Let's move off of COVID. Yeah, let's move off of COVID. We're getting real close to the line here. The COVID vaccinations are great, and everybody should take them. Should get all the boosters. We follow all recommendations of the WHO, of the Joe Biden administration. So let's bring in Colin. Let's bring in Colin here and get your reaction to RFK being censored and that clip. And again, like Nick alluded to, Professor and Apollo and Colin, we're going to be playing the Debbie Wasserman Schultz video and a couple of other clips before we end this segment. But let's get your opinion, though, on the first clip that Nick played here.
This is all I'm going to say. If RFK really had the balls, he would have called out Bill Clinton in light of the censorship that we've been experiencing now. Notice that he did not mention how Bill Clinton is responsible with the Telecommunications Act that essentially consolidated all these media corporations into now 6 media heads now. So now there's a lot more, since the 90s, has been a lot more government control in terms of media. So easy to go after Trump. Well, he kind of said he got censored under Trump. But the point is, all of what's happening now in terms of censorship is due to the Democrats. So Democrats can complain and say whatever they want, that they're anti-censorship, when really, and as the saying goes, as we say a lot, they're more effective in getting a lot of these dystopian policies through. Because, at least with Republicans, when they're outright against a lot of these issues, then a lot more people will make a lot more noise over this stuff. When it comes to Democrats, people tend to fall asleep. So, I mean, we deal with this constantly in independent media in terms of having to watch what we say, having to watch, what we put out there, and in the idea of we don't want to step on anyone's toes. We don't want to have our channels taken out. But again, this is all due to Democrats. and no one talks about that in terms of what Clinton did. And you can argue right at that point, the internet was in its infancy at that time. But look till now, how much overreach Google has in terms of how much they affect YouTube, that you can't even talk about certain issues without being worried that you're, like you guys this past week, you got strike for what? A video that you talked about, what, last year or 2 years ago?
Year and a half.
Right. So it just goes to show they don't need any particular reason. I'm sure you guys got hit mostly because you're growing and you're saying a lot of stuff that is not, it's very counter to the mainstream narrative. You guys are of color, so you guys are going to be a much easier target considering your growth. But again, the Democrats, as much as they kind of downplay, are the most effective in upholding censorship. I mean, look at AOC. Like, she's called for censorship, in terms of what's happening to her.
She's a victim now, Colin.
Right.
She's a victim.
Right. So, yeah, that's all I got to say. But as I said, if RFK, he really should have gone, if he really wanted to talk about censorship, he really should have gone there and said, this is a result of Democrats. But, he's
trying to be nice.
He's trying to be nice. Right.
Yeah.
So, but which kind of shows, he could say the right thing, but at the same time, he's willing to play ball because that's his party after all.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, he's still, trying to stay in the good graces of the Democratic Party. And as you said, they are the more effective evil. And I'm going to bring in Apollo in just a second and get your opinion. And apologies to Professor Anthony again, cutting you off on that. We just real touchy on this COVID shit that they're doing to us right now. It's really crazy. But let's bring in Apollo and get your opinion. What say you so far about what's happening to RFK?
So before we even get to RFK, censorship against us, against RBN. I don't know if you guys remember, but we've been censored on TikTok before. We got our TikTok account taken down.
Yeah.
And just last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, we had a strike on Instagram. And both times it was because we posted something that was going against the empire propaganda. It was some, it was me posting something about.
I got banned on Twitch. Like, I had our streams on Twitch, my old Twitch play before I started RBN. That was mostly why I streamed. I streamed at Twitch, and my Twitch audience was bigger than my YouTube audience. So I was dual streaming on my Twitch, even though most of them switched over to RBN. And I got an email one day like, yo, we banned your crazy ass. Get the fuck out of here. Anyway, go ahead, Paulo. To your point, we are banned on multiple platforms. We're gone on Twitch.
At least from what I saw, it was because we were reporting on shit that was challenging empire propaganda. Like the Instagram strike was because we posted about the prevalence of NAZIS. If I say that word, YouTube could ban us for that. Maybe give them a strike. So, for the prevalence of those German right-wing parties, prevalence of those in the Ukrainian army, they banned us. They gave a strike for that. And now moving on to RFK, regardless of what you think about him, he is a presidential candidate and he is getting censored. So just for a second, think about how we would react if this was happening in Russia or China or anywhere else. If a presidential candidate, somebody who's challenging the incumbent administration, gets censored by the government. We already call them authoritarian, free speech, and I'm not saying these countries are perfect. They do have their problems with censorship as well. But if this was applied to other countries, just imagine how we would react. And you guys remember the Oscars when they brought over Alexei Navalny to say, "Oh, Putin's Russia is big, bad censorship, this, that, Alexei's in jail, all this shit." So this is always going to be applied in one direction, and there's never going to be consistency for it. And if you challenge the empire propaganda, they will come after you, no matter a big, small. They'll go after presidential candidates. They'll go after YouTubers, podcasters. no, if you don't fall in line, they're gonna come after your ass, and it's just unfortunate just the way things are because of that.
So
Just terrible. Go ahead, Nick.
We want people to ask yourself the question: who does a certain agenda serve? Does it serve the establishment, or does it serve us? Given unelected bureaucrats, which is this lady who's speaking, I got her name again, Stacey Plackett. She's like unelected, apparently. Given them
She's a delegate.
Yeah.
She's a delegate, I believe, from the Virgin Island, and so they basically are they're just there for show. They don't have any voting. They can't vote or anything like that. So
who does that serve? So they always give you all these excuses. Oh, well, we got to censor because that certain person is bad. No, that serves the establishment. That doesn't serve us. Like, who's the arbiter who is good and what is bad? Especially when you live under a violent imperialist capitalist society, you're gonna allow that society that already got warped morals to decide who's good and bad. So this is Stacey Plackett. I'll let her speak for herself, but she's defending the censorship against RFK. Remember, I want to show you guys like the absurdity of the Democrat argument during this hearing was RFK is lying that we are censoring him, but we should censor RFK. They're making both arguments at the same damn time. I shit you not. Watch the damn hearing. I'll show you this clip here.
Let me say this before you play the clip, and that is, understand, I've seen this particular person in many videos, and what they use these delegates who really don't have any power, they use them as the garbage people. They're here to say the crazy stuff, the most egregious stuff, the most offensive stuff. That's what they use this person for. But go ahead now with the video.
Yeah, she has to be it has to be something like that, because she can't be this naturally ridiculous. But you guys see the brothers and sisters who make it in our empire. Yeah. Which is why we take it upon ourselves to call these charlatans out. They're the biggest empire simps. Our wise brothers and sisters like W.B. Du Bois, Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, sniff these people out decades ago. Anyway, listen to you. I can go all day on that. Listen to you.
We hear. Why? You know, that's been the question that quite a number of people have been asking me. Why are you having this hearing? What does this have to do with inflation? What does this have to do with the cost of living? What does this have to do with the everyday lives of Americans? The thing that the Republican Party said that they would focus on if they had control of the House. Why would the Republican leadership and the committee majority give a hearing and a platform to the witnesses today, specifically to Mr. Kennedy, a man who has recently claimed that COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and Black people? The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. And before that,
once again, why is that ban-worthy? I legitimately don't understand.
His film, Medical Racism, The New Apartheid, that film stated that COVID-19 vaccines do not work for Black children because of their, quote, kick-ass kind of immune system.
Why is that ban-worthy?
Hyper, superhuman, subhuman kind of language.
So I don't want to interject our opinions at all here, because it's not necessary. Even if you think RFK is a crazy asshole for saying this stuff, how is any of this worth censoring over? That's the question.
Right.
Also said,
because Nick, let me say this, because this is so if it's crazy, that's the censorship. That you don't need to apply anything else. Like if your censorship, if your goal of censorship is so people don't believe it, but it's so crazy, it's self-censoring. You don't have to censor it if you by what they're saying is, oh, this is so outlandishly crazy, then people aren't going to believe it. We don't need you to censor that. We don't need Big Brother helping us out. We have brains for ourselves. We can hear nonsense and then we can believe it or not. But go ahead.
Absolutely.
That because of their, quote, kick-ass kind of immune system, that hyper, superhuman, subhuman kind of language. He also said, even in Hitler's Germany,
subhuman at the same time. Superhuman and subhuman
hide in
at the
an
same
attic
time.
like Anne Frank did to imply Jews in Nazi Germany had more freedoms than unvaccinated Americans during the COVID-19.
Once again, if you think that's a stupid opinion, that's a fucking relevant. Why is that ban worthy? Ratio his ass if you think that's stupid. Like,
Pandemic.
what is
Now,
wrong
many
with
of my
you?
Republican colleagues across the dais will rush to cover that they have Mr. Kennedy here because they want to protect his free speech, that they do not believe in American censorship. This is not the kind of free speech that I know of. The free speech that is protected by the Constitution's first.
This is not the kind of free speech I know of, not the free speech protected by the First Amendment. This crazy right now, guys. This is crazy shit that come out of the Democratic Party. 20 more seconds, and I'll pass to the panel.
First Amendment. But free speech is not an absolute. The Supreme Court has stated that. And others' free speech that is allowed, hateful, abusive rhetoric, does not need to be promoted in the halls of the people's house.
Cuckoo for Cocoa Puff shit right there. I want to pass to the panel. I said enough. Anything you guys want to add on?
Well, unrelated to the censorship thing, Stacey Plaskett misled the public and her constituents about her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
Oh, what?
Recently, so there are donations. I think the maximum allowed donations for individuals that Jeffrey Epstein made to her campaign. Her response, this was like in 2016. Her response was, I didn't know about those donations. And so people, I guess, wanted to believe her until some information came out a couple of weeks ago showing not only did she know about them, her campaign solicited directly these donations from Jeffrey Epstein. She had face-to-face meetings with him and worked for a law firm that was doing business to help him out with the clandestine empire. She, and by the way, all of this after his 2008 conviction for child sex trafficking. So this wasn't a mistake. She worked with a known child sex trafficker.
Dude, she's the swampiest swamp monster.
She's a disgusting.
Everyone was in the swamp.
Yeah.
Like she's the swampiest creature out there.
But yeah, and to say then that, you know, the mischaracterization, all RFK Jr. did, and again, I don't know anything about the studies, but all he did was refer in a private conversation to a scientific paper. And people, the thing that drives me nuts is whether it's Congress or the media, why don't they look at the study and say, well, here's why we think it's bullshit, or, well, there may be something to it, we need further research. They'll never look at it. They'll only use it to label. Because when you run outside, even though he's running as a Democrat, and again, I don't support his candidacy, I support his right to do it, they will do one of two things or both to you. First, they have to say, three things. They ignore you at first. If they can no longer ignore you, they will call you crazy. And if they can't get away with that, they will call you evil, that you're like this hateful, the worst thing, Nazi, whatever. That's what they're doing to him without any substance about what he was referring to.
I also want to say,
Colin, I think you were going to chime in, or Apollo. Go ahead. My bad.
Yeah, no worries. So pre-COVID, vaccines only made up about like 2% of pharmaceutical industry profits, just 2%. Now there are ways to like manipulate those numbers, so it might not be totally accurate, but officially on paper, it was only about 2%. Post-COVID, I don't know what the number is at, but I can't imagine it being like anywhere above like 5 to 10%. So just look at how much time, money, and energy they spend discrediting someone for their take on vaccines for something that only makes up like 2 to 5% of their profits.
That's crazy because it was making like $1,000 per minute per second. Some crazy shit like that during the height of COVID with the vaccines too.
Yeah, but like the industry itself is like a multi-trillion-dollar industry, so it's still at the end of the day like pennies to the dollar. Now imagine like how much they would censor you for something that actually takes up a much bigger percentage of the budget. Like, how much have you given Ukraine now? Like 150
Right.
billion, like in the past year, out of like a $800 billion military budget. That's, if my math is right, that's like almost 20%. Like, they're going to censor you so much harder for issues
Right.
that have a much, much bigger profit margin. And because you just, looking at the way that they try to salvage every single penny possible for their donors, for their big industries and whatnot. So it's just what I wanted to mention.
Which is why, speaking about Dr. West, that whenever he's been on mainstream media and he starts talking about Ukraine or anything like that, they deviate from that conversation, because for that reason, they don't want to have it affect their money in terms of the military industrial complex, big pharma, you name it. So I don't like RFK, the fact he's a Democrat and he's a Kennedy. Hell, I grew up in Massachusetts. Kennedys to me are a bad name. So I never supported him. But regardless, he is saying stuff that is not popular, regardless of that. And you see like the pretzels that Democrats, mainstream media are making to try not for him to talk about any of these issues that are more apparent for the working class, and instead, and it's just easier to smear him and Marianne Williamson and probably more so Dr. West, so to avoid talking about these. So yeah, it's just a big distraction at the end of the day. Like, this is nothing but more kabuki theater in terms of ensuring that, and she said it, Plaskett said it, he's not able to talk about the issues that are important to people. But then she goes off her tangent. But she's right, at least the first half, in terms of we're not talking about anything specifically that me and you guys are more wanting to focus on, the economy. And so this is just another pull from the government just to avoid having us talk about those conversations and just distract and point fingers and having us, debate and yell at each other over these, I wouldn't say culture, many of them are cultural, but a lot of these issues, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Like, if you choose to get the vaccine or whatever, fine. I don't care. If you choose to believe something that you want to believe, fine. It doesn't affect me. I don't give a damn. Can we focus on like actual things that will actually make our lives better, please? And actually do something about that? And then not having those conversations at all on purpose.
It was ironic
And
that
Nick,
she
go
brought it was ironic that she brought that up, as if the Democratic Party was doing that, as if the Democratic Party was taking care of working class people. I don't want people to get twisted. The Democrats is making the Republicans sound rational on censorship in this case, but ask these same Republicans, hell, probably ask RFK about how you feel about BDS censorship. There was teachers, there was many people who've been fired in Florida because of BDS. So when people like DeSantis and many people on the right pretend they support free speech, or only speech you like, or what about Palestinians come from boycott Israel, which is your free speech right? The same right wing also is trying to limit where you can protest. You can't protest over here, you can't protest over there. A protest that is government approved is essentially a glorified prep rally. That's essentially what it is. And that was the right one to do. You can't protest in their house because we don't want to make the oligarchs uncomfortable. Like, crackdowns on protests is crackdowns on free speech, whether you like it or not, state bootlickers. But with that said, let's move on to this next one, because there's CJ, the way we can do this, I got 2 more clips, and then you can cover all my bases on anything I missed.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Gotcha.
So I'm gonna just play 2 more. And the reason I'm showing this, because I want to show you what else Debbie Wasserman Schultz did before she actually tried to censor him on the floor. Debbie Wasserman Schultz tried to blame the rise of anti-Semitism on RFK, essentially. Because based on their opinion, he has cringe science takes. So how is someone's cringe science takes lead to the rise of anti-Semitism. Anyway, let's see her explain it. Let's watch this insanity. Once again, like if I were Republicans, I would just play this in ads. Like this is repellent to ordinary people. Like this is only played for liberals. Most Americans, as I explained earlier, find this ridiculous.
A few months ago, Mr. Kennedy, you compared COVID public health policies to barbaric murderous tactics of Nazi Germany, saying that Jewish people in Nazi Germany had more freedom than Americans facing COVID health restrictions. In hindsight, Mr. Kennedy, do you reject this absurd and deeply hurtful and harmful comparison, or do you still stand by it?
Congressman, what you are saying is a lie.
That you said it.
I did not. I never continued.
Okay.
I never, ever.
Mr. Chairman, I'm
compared
happy to
COVID
enter into the record when
countermeasures.
Mr. Kennedy said that. I reclaim my time. In discussing COVID public health measures,
so
you made light
annoying.
of the genocide against Jewish people by saying, and I quote, even Hitler's Germany, you could cross the Alps to Switzerland, you could hide in an attic like Anne Frank did. Mr. Kennedy, do you think it was easy for Jewish people to escape systematic slaughter of Nazis, yes or no?
Absolutely not.
Okay, good. Mr. Kennedy, do you think it was just as hard to wear a mask during COVID as it was to hide under floorboards or false walls so you weren't murdered or dragged to a concentration camp? Yes or no?
Excuse me.
That's a question, yes or no?
Question.
I'm getting so bad. I don't even blame him, bro. I don't even blame him, to be honest. But bro,
This is some of the dumbest shit. This is like I'm Dumb and Dumber on steroids, and she is just a ghoul, man. She is like I don't know. Is she married? Like who is her friend? I just don't get Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Like who is this supposed to appeal to, CJ? Like
yeah,
this supposed to be playing to somebody. Like that's what this. We all know this is political theater. So this theater for who? For you liberals, because right wing. This is theater for them to appeal to free speech activists, libertarian-minded people, right? So who are you appealing to with this?
Oh, she's appealing to George Takate. She's appealing to Deborah Messing and Alyssa Milano and any cowbell leftist. There's literally nobody else that would think this is
who's voting for her.
Good.
Like who?
I don't
like who's in Florida? Like who are the people? Like I want to see like pictures of what they look like. Who are these people voting for her? Anyway, let's continue. And I thought the panel after the end of the clip.
Or dragged to a concentration camp, yes or no?
Excuse me.
That's a question, yes or no?
I didn't hear your question.
Okay, I said, do you think it was just as hard to wear a mask during COVID as it was to hide under floorboards or false walls so you weren't murdered or dragged to a concentration camp?
Of course not.
Like imagine how toasted your brain has to be as a liberal to not think that's not a bad faith question. That's obviously, even if you don't like RFK, that's obviously a bad faith question. If you can't spot that, you are too far gone.
That's ridiculous.
That's a comparison that you made.
I did not make that comparison.
Were the measures taken to contain the spread and fatalities related to COVID in any way at all comparable to the murder of 6 million Jews? Yes or no?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Let's be very clear here. There's no legitimate comparison to the Holocaust. It doesn't matter if you're talking about AI, vaccine mandates, or anything else. There is no comparison. And if this were a slip of the tongue, Mr. Kennedy, or a one-off comment, we would all move on. But there's a deeply disturbing pattern.
Now, there's one more clip, but I want to give you guys quick thoughts. Actually, this 27 seconds. Let me play the last 27
Antagonism.
seconds. Because this is when she directly blamed him for her kids being threatened by anti-Semitism.
By echoing dangerous claims such as, quote, Jews don't really suffer as much as we do, which you said, your rhetoric creates a climate of mistrust, antagonism, and even hatred or violence against Jewish people. My own children have been the targets of brutal anti-Semitism on social media. You fan those flames and jeopardize their safety. You've marginalized other groups too, like Asian Americans and the LGBTQ plus community. And worse, you don't seem to care or brush it all off as misquotes and misunderstanding. Frankly,
bro, Debbie Wasserman Schultz blamed RFK Jr. for her kids being harassed because due to anti-Semitism because of his takes on health policy. This is cuckoo for Cocoa Puff shit. The panel, go ahead, guys. This is unbelievable shit right now that we watch.
I just think that like this, the whole like Israel thing and the whole Jews and Holocaust thing those are real tragedies that these politicians try to
Yes.
pretend like they're signaling to care about these people, the 6 million Jews that were like they're caring about Anne Frank. They don't give a fuck at all about any of these people, but they want to use it as some sort of tool. Like it's the new thing to call somebody a racist, to be anti-Semitic. Like that's the new sort of thing, and it's terrible because it's one of them things where there's people who are really suffering. There's people where that's really like going through anti-Semitism, and when you're putting this in the same bucket as anti-Semitism, it just watered down what it means to be anti-Semitic. And anyway, that's what I want to say.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it. If we're talking about anti-Semitism, what's happening in Palestine?
Exactly.
Let's go there. Like, she's not going to say anything in regards to Palestinians. So it's just anti-Semitism within the context of her being Jewish, but not necessarily incorporating the whole lot, which includes the Arabs within that region as well. They never go there, but it's always like, oh, my identity in terms of being Jewish. And I'm not knocking anyone who's Jewish here. I just want to make that clear. But my guess is she's kind of like slicing it in terms of her and her culture and her religion versus the whole scope, which does not necessarily include Palestinians. But beside from that, and shout out to DJ Joe Nice, we talked about this on my stream last night. It's interesting that, you know, someone like Watchman Stoltz brings up the Holocaust, the issues that with Jews and all that kind of stuff. And look, I sympathize with that. I get that. Obviously, that's an important historical marker in their history, whatever. Have a Black person do that in terms of reparations. Right? We don't get any sympathy at all in terms of our needs. That's important to us, at least for the African. Well, I can argue members in the African diaspora, that's important to us, but they're never going to make that a priority. But when it comes to stuff as far as this in regards to anti-Semitism or like the Holocaust, we're supposed to give a damn. So I'm sorry in this regard, and I said this on my show last night. If you want me to care about the issues that are important to you, especially how it ties to your culture, and especially if I'm your friend and that's important to you, I will go to bat for you in that regard. I only ask that you give a damn about the issues that are important to me in our community, that you'll do that in like mine. And I'll say this, and I said this last night, and I'm going to call some of your audience out on this too. There's certain people on the left who claim that they are for Black lives. They may have it in their profile, whatever, but when it talks about defunding the police, talk about reparations, talking about healthcare, like housing in terms of the Black community, you don't see those people. So again, I'll say it. This is just more virtual signaling, and I agree with you, CJ. I think this is just in terms of trying to appeal to the liberal suburban mindset of, trying to pull at the heartstrings, especially, to that audience, whoever's watching this. But it's funny that I just noticed that this is what is used all the time in terms of this issue. But then when it comes to Black issues, we don't get, there is not that same pull in terms of caring about our issues like this, in terms of having people feel sorry for us.
And to that point, to that point, and people have said this, the last person I think who was mentioned this was Margaret Kimberly from Black Agenda Report. The Holocaust is a terrible tragedy, 6 million people. But guess what happened before the Holocaust?
Right.
In the Congo, 11
Right.
million people. That's
Right.
never talked about. That's never, because those are Africans. So, like, the Holocaust is a real thing, but it seems to win when we're talking about oppression Olympics. And I wonder it's because a lot of the Jews that we're talking about in the Holocaust were white.
Right.
So I wonder if that's the case. But go ahead.
And again, I say again, you can argue that Palestinians is somewhat comparable to our experience in the Black culture. You can always make that argument. But we never have that conversation in terms of when we talk about the conflict regarding Israel and Palestine. It's always in the case of the Israelis and not often in the case of thinking about the Palestinians and the oppression that they're going through right now. And I think, but we're supposed to feel sorry for Jews in terms of the Holocaust and all this kind of stuff. But you have Palestinians in your homeland, relatively, that you forcibly took over, and you want us to give a damn about the whole, like, it does not make sense to me in that regard.
Yeah, I won't get to this next clip just for a second, Tom. We got a lot of stuff to cover. Like, we still got a lot to get into. So the last thing I have, because I want to show you guys the clown-like arguments. And I think showing the last two shit lives that we watched on shows and the other lady, who's extremely forgettable to me for some reason. I think that sums up their general argument. And if you guys are curious, look at it. It's a very interesting hearing to watch because Republicans come out in favor of free speech. Democrats are so shitty, they can have a political scenario where the Republicans are the rational people. How is that possible? And to show how the peak of irrationality of the Democrats, as I explained, during this hearing, they were making arguments that RFK claims of censorship was unfounded, while also, as I showed you earlier, saying, but if we was to censor RFK, we are justified in doing so. So there was a hearing on censorship where they kept interrupting de facto censoring RFK constantly over and over, as you heard from Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And there was a great exchange. I wish I could find it. I may show you guys another day. But I was watching a long live stream, and that black lady or whatever, she kept, what the fuck her now? I keep forgetting her name.
Stacey Plaskett or something like that.
It's very forgettable for me for some reason. But she kept interrupting RFK, and then that fucking Republican guy, he was like, "Will you stop censoring him?" And
Jim Jordan, yeah.
And it was like a good moment for him. Okay, like, you literally proving our point. Like, you're not even talking to you. Shut the fuck up. But anyway, there's another clown moment for the Democrats where during this censorship hearing, they call for a motion to censor RFK as they are denying the fact that they're not censoring him. So this is actually a very boring clip. I just want to show you guys what happened. The clip is not very that. When I watch it, it's not a lot here, but it says a lot.
I'd like to raise a point of order.
Young lady, say a point of order.
Point of order pursuant to House Rule 11, Clause 2, which Mr. Kennedy is violative of. I move that we remove into executive session because Mr. Kennedy has repeatedly made despicable anti-Semitic and anti-Asian comments as recently as last week. Rule 11, Clause 2 says, whenever it is asserted by a member of the committee that the evidence or testimony at a hearing.
So they're having a hearing about censorship. Debbie Wasserman Schultz said, "Hey, you guys see what this motherfucker said last week? No, shut this down. Censor this." Proving the entire point of the Republicans and RFK. They are so unhinged, they don't even realize it.
Let me continue. To defame, degrade, or incriminate any person, or it is asserted by a witness that the evidence or testimony that the witness would give at a hearing may tend to defame, degrade, or incriminate the witness, and it goes on. Mr. Kennedy, among many other things, has said, I know a lot now about bioweapons. We put out hundreds of millions of dollars into ethnically targeted microbes. The Chinese have done the same thing. In fact, COVID-19, there is an argument that it is ethnically targeted. COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. The races that are most immune to COVID-19 are...
A lady making a motion or a speech?
I've made a motion to move into executive session because Mr. Kennedy's testimony...
This dude was fucking them up. Obviously this dude a Republican. I don't care what this dude.
Jim
but
Jordan.
I was watching the hearing. This dude was destroying him the entire time. And you guys see, he's like, "You giving a speech or doing a motion?" So anyway, I thought that the guy was funny. I think Jim Jordan or whatever. He was destroying him, and not because he's witty, not because Jim Jordan anything special. It's just because Democrats are so trash. Any one of us sitting in that seat would have been roasting these people, but he was. That's just another example. I'll play that part again. We're not gonna play too much of this because after this you see a lot of voting, but this is them censoring RFK while they're denying that they're censoring.
The most immune to COVID-19
A
are.
lady making a motion or a speech.
I've made a motion to move into executive session because Mr. Kennedy's testimony.
Mr. Chairman, I
and
move
his
to table the
previous
motion.
statements-
Gentleman from Kentucky.
So at this point, none of the wives they vote, and then they censor RFK there. So that's the last clip I have, but this is literally the few clips I'll show you. That's the theme of this overall hearing. And CJ, if you have anything you want to add, any gaps?
Yeah, I think I have the clip. I have the clip where he interrupts Pulaski and says, "Hey, yeah, we're giving him 5 minutes. If you want to do some more censoring, go ahead," or something to that effect. So I'll play that. I'm not sure if this is the one you were talking about, Nick.
Yeah, it'll still be
let's
fun to look at
play
either way.
Yeah, this is it's not even a minute long, so let's play this one.
Excuse me, point of order. I know that witnesses usually have 5 minutes. I see 10 minutes on board. Is it going to be 10 minutes?
We'll
for
give him
every
5
witness?
minutes, but we're pretty lax with this. We'll let him go for.
We are? I've seen you gavel down on quite a number of
We've
witnesses.
given senators and former Democrat members of Congress and all kinds
He's
of folks my
neither.
time.
He's
I know.
neither.
I'm just saying in past history.
Okay,
in
okay.
committee. But
Let's just
we'll
watch
you-
the time for all the witnesses.
And if
then.
you want to cut him off and censor him some more, you're welcome to do it.
Oh, that's not my job. Witness so that
Bro,
they-
he was destroying them the whole day. He was destroying
Nice
them.
for his opening statement.
I would have rewinded. Let's play that second because he's like, you want to
that's
censor
funny
him
as
some
hell.
more? Go ahead.
the witnesses.
And if you want to cut him off and censor him some more, you're welcome to do it.
Oh, that's not my job. That's your job. Why don't you threaten a witness so that they can
Mr.
not
Kennedy-
want to be a
Mr. Kennedy
witness?
is recognized for his opening statement. We'll give him 5 minutes more or less, and then we'll move to the next one. Mr. Kennedy, gonna go a little.
This is it's so trash, and that'll be it, and we can close this segment. But this is so trash that at a censorship trial, you're trying to censor him some more. You're trying to make sure he's sticking to 5 minutes exactly, not 1 second over. What is it that he has to say that his Democrats are so afraid of, panel? What is it that they're so afraid that this person, if what they're saying, if he's saying such lunatic things, why isn't your strategy to let the lunatic say lunatic shit so you can win?
Right.
Yeah.
It has to be something else. And I'll pass it to the panel. Final words before we move to the next story here. If there's no final words, we can move on. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, just it's less about censorship and just more about like Debbie Wasserman Schultz hypocrisy in general. I sent both you and CJ and Nick a picture from the DNC 2016 convention. If you guys can pull that up real quick. But it's basically, for those of you guys that don't remember, Debbie Wasserman Schultz was in charge of the DNC back in 2016.
Mhm.
And the items they had in the gift shops of the convention center was in the bottom over there, an anti-Semitic caricature of Bernie Sanders. Like,
Oh, I remember this.
yeah. And so there's no way that made it through, approval without Debbie Wasserman Schultz like signing off on it at some point or another. And for her to say, oh, the RFK is anti-Semitic, his vaccine propaganda is all this bullshit anti-Semitic, it's just complete hypocrisy. Regardless of what you think of Bernie Sanders, what you think of him as being a sellout or whatever, and I'm very much disappointed in him. But like, this is as
Neera Tanden, to your point, Paulo. Neera Tanden literally called Bernie Sanders a fake fucking Jew. Like that's like extreme anti-Semitism, 10 out of 10 right there. But that was calling someone a fake Jew. Like imagine I would get canceled if I did that. But the Democrats was allowed to do these anti-Semitic trolls to Bernie or anyone who considered their enemy. The same way they throw anti-black and racist tropes, and we've been seeing that Dr. Cornel West. You see that all the liberals that go after us that we highlight in human factoring all the time. The people calling us Uncle Tom to go to like Democrats, all this racist shit. The new one's Candace Owens. Like liberals think they slick. They found a new one. They're like, all right, Uncle Tom is a slur. We can't say it no more. So we're gonna replace Uncle Tom with Candace Owens. You're Candace Owens. I'm like, they call Ice Cube Candace Owens. Like they call black people who have politics nothing like Candace Owens that, but that's their new slur because they weaponize the same thing they claim to fight against, racism and prejudice, right? But Zinkas on those Zinkas that we call in here before we wrap up here, and then we gotta move on because just for the sake of time here soon. Or we can move on, CJ.
Yeah. Okay. So we can get to the next topic. I want to do a little bit of upbeat story, a fun story, a faster story, and that's the Kyle Kulinski story.
Oh
So
God.
this is gonna be fun, right? this is gonna be fun, right? So let's do that.
It can be two fun stories because I got a good one that follows this one as well.
Okay.
Go ahead, CJ.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so this is a quick story. Now, this is, of course, Kyle Kulinski, and somebody clipped, or I should say, Post-Duopolis clipped something from one of his latest streams. And this clip, he's talking. Well, I don't want to preface what he says because it's pretty self-evident. So let's just play the clip and then we'll respond. There's two clips, and this is the first one.
You are a useful tool for the right if all you do is go on Fox News and all you do is bash Democrats. Because there's a difference between what your politics are nominally, which is the label you give yourself, versus what you are effectively, which means how does your political commentary impact people in your audience or people who are listening to you, right? And you can go on with all the best intentions in the world. And I'm an ardent lefty, right? And I'm going to defend my lefty principles. But in the process of defending your lefty principles, all you do is beat up on Democrats. Well,
I got to stop it here because this is so ridiculous. Literally what he just said is what we talk about all the time. There's one thing that they say. He just described virtue signaling. You're saying you want this, but your policies are effectively something different. Isn't that what we say about the squad? Isn't that what we say about AOC? Don't you guys, and I'm talking about Kyle, defend all of that? This is exactly the point that we make, is that they're signaling that they're, social democrats or socialists, but they're behaving like center-right liberals. Their voting record is 91% with Joe Biden, and that's AOC. So what Kyle is saying here, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, this clip is about Cornel West. Is that correct? Is he talking about
Cornel? So the problem I have with
Nick.
this, because he's happy that Dr. Cornel West goes on Fox News and bash Democrats and Republicans. So this is ultimately him praising Dr. Cornel West style of doing that. But the problem is that these people still buy into the argument that the Democratic Party is the lesser of two evils. And he feel like that we are obligated to frame all our conversations on the framework of the red-blue game. And you're going to see later in this clip, he's going to say, this is the problem I have with leftists nowadays. Who you guys think he's talking about? He's talking about us and Jimmy Dore. They just don't say our fucking name. Who else is out there doing? They're like, y'all got a problem with these leftists that always go after Democrats. Like, why do we have to frame our conversation within the framework of the red-blue game? Right. And that's what they demanded. So they're like, if you talk about a story, say a good thing about a Democrat and a bad thing about a Republican. Make sure that's square for us. That's what Kyle Kulinski is calling for, essentially. But anyway, I want the video to continue because you're gonna see he's gonna get more unhinged on this argument. And then the clip I have, I think you may have it saved as well. But there's another clip where if you think if there's any doubt in your mind that he's being a Democratic shill, he literally just come out and says it that everyone should believe that Democrats are better than Republicans. Like, it's a completely fact-free argument.
Oh no, you got to play that.
We're here later, but go ahead.
Yeah, you got to play that. I don't think I have that one. So let's listen some more. Minute and 15 seconds to go.
Which means, how does your political commentary impact?
Sorry, let me rewind it because I want to get his explanation of this right here.
Effectively, which means, how does your political commentary impact people in your audience or people who are listening to you, right? And you can go on with all the best intentions in the world. And I'm an ardent lefty, right? And I'm going to defend my lefty principles. But in the process of defending your lefty principles, all you do is beat up on Democrats. Well, you might nominally be a lefty, but effectively, you're just telling a right-wing audience what they want to hear and feeding into their narrative and into their delusion that Republicans are better than Democrats.
My question is, why is this? Why is this important for us? Like, once again, I frame things as from the context of the worker. Now, you got to follow my work. I speak truth. I spit fire at everybody. From the context of the worker, why should we care that people are having a perception that the Republican Party is better than Democrats as long as we speak in truth to power? Our target should always be at power. We shouldn't care about the implications regarding the two-party red-blue game. But anyway, I want to get the thoughts of the panel.
Or how about this, though? How about this, though? Because this is another point that I want to make here. Are the Republicans marching us to a nuclear war? Are the Republicans the one calling in for censorship through Twitter? Are the Republicans the one that's doing all of these sort of fascistic things? Are they or are they not? So it's like, even if we base, let's say we're gonna talk about a bunch of shit only if it's like real bad shit. Do you still think we're not gonna be talking about Democrats mostly? Because Republicans Republicans don't get their shit done through legislation. Democrats get Republican shit done through legislation. So even if so, as we're talking about red blue, if we were just to talk about the more effective evil and only point out that, who would we be pointing out, Kyle? Except for the Democrats. Go ahead. And
the only reason I didn't take that route yet, because the next clip, I don't think you've seen it, is actually worse. Because if there's any ambiguity about what I'm saying here, I'm about to make it clear. I believe Democrats are better than Republicans, and he's saying it and arguing with his chest in his next clip. So the reason why he's even having this conversation, the reason why he's even putting this out there is because he's working on the framework that Democrats are better than Republicans. If you're not working on that framework, you have no reason to care about how you distributing who you going after or not. Like, this is only a Democrat talking point because the only people who care are Democrats. Anyway, I want to get the panel in and then we can continue.
I think somebody was going to chime in. I couldn't see, but I heard somebody wanted to chime in before we get back to the video.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, the arguments that he presents are not backed up by anything. So if he were to say, here's why Democrats are far better than Republicans, and really went through a list, and we could just go with what we talked about today. Colin brought up a few minutes ago the Telecommunications Act of, I think it was like 1996. That was a Bill Clinton thing, and it made it definitely curtailed free speech. Clinton, a Democrat, also signed the crime bill, signed the deregulation of Wall Street, which ended up precipitating the 2008 economic crash, which caused millions of Americans to lose their jobs and homes and thousands of Americans to die by suicide. So no, they're not better. In fact, the Republicans often join with them, and I will just throw out, there's definitely a group of establishment Republicans who are very happy with the war in Ukraine. That proxy war makes them extremely excited, but it's the establishment. He doesn't back it up. We actually can back it up. I'll debate Kyle Kulinski, and I'll list all those things. Any of us here could do that. Most of your audience could.
Yeah, I also wanted to say that Democrats achieve what Republicans only dream of achieving, such as getting rid of NAFTA. Bill Clinton did that. Ronald Reagan wanted to do that for a while. It took Bill Clinton to do that. I'm sorry, instating NAFTA. The Telecommunications Act. Ronald Reagan tried doing something similar, but he couldn't until Bill Clinton did it. The Wall Street Deregulations Act, the repeal of Glass-Steagall, these are all Ronald Reagan's wet dreams, and it took Bill Clinton to fucking do it. It took Obama to take us from 2 wars to 7 or 8, however it happened to be, But putting all that aside, let's say you just buy Kyle's trading for a second in this red-blue game. the Republicans never pretended to be our friends. They never pretended to like want our votes or anything. They have like marginalized, ostracized, and ignored us for like since forever. The Democrats are the ones that pretend to be our friends, are the ones that want our votes, and they're not doing our job. Like the Republicans are not worth attacking. It's a given that they're our enemy. Like we just need more people to realize that the Democrats are also our enemy because they're fucking
It
safe.
wasn't on that point, Apollo. It wasn't the Republican Party that killed Medicare for All. It was Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. It was Hillary Clinton.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't the Republican. It wasn't Donald Trump that killed that movement. It wasn't Donald Trump that killed student loan debt relief because they wrote a bad program. That's Joe Biden. That's Democrats. So why are we focused on going after Republicans when we gotta get past the firewall to even get past them? I remember when I was in the Bernie campaign, I talk about this all the time. I couldn't wait to go after Trump because remember I told you I was delusional. I thought we was gonna win. And I was like, man, I can't wait to go after Trump. I got all these lines of attack. The Republicans are super weak. I'm gonna expose them as fake populists. But we lost to neoliberals. So it's like we can't even get to the Republicans when there's this firewall that is meant to protect the Republicans and the establishment from the left. So we got to tear down that illusion that the Democratic Party is on our side so that will stop happening in the future. So maybe in the future, we can really start going after the Republicans after we get rid of the neoliberal Democrats. But let's continue the clip because we talk about lesser two evils. The next clip is really something else. So let's continue this one, and then the next one we can talk more about lesser two evils.
And into their delusion that Republicans are better than Democrats, even if you don't believe Republicans are better than Democrats. But if 100% of your criticisms are just against Democrats, that's what people are going to hear, whether or not it's what you mean. So you have to be very aware of not just what your nominal political label is, but what your effective political label is, where, like, what kind of an audience are you attracting? Who are you making not along an agreement? You don't want there to be misunderstandings about what you actually believe and who you actually support. And if you just go on Fox News and just beat up on Democrats, people are going to get the misimpression you're sort of de facto defending the Republicans, or at the very least saying they're a lesser evil.
No one thinks that unless you're in the red blue gang.
Because honestly, this is an
well,
issue. A lot of lefties fall into this trap. They do. Yeah, I'm a nominal lefty, but all I do is beat up on Democrats. So effectively, I'm serving what the right wing wants.
Who's he talking about? Right there.
It's crazy that it's crazy that he refers to Cornel West as the nominal leftist. Cornel West is nominally left, but the guy who's fine, but Marianne Williamson, who believes in the Ukraine war and sending billions to Nazis, and who believes that in a two-state solution, she's not nominally left. That's just weird to me. That's just weird that he's pointing that out. But that's the end of that video. If you want to play,
I'm gonna show you guys this one too because that one you can see him buy into the argument of the lesser two evils. And that was mostly my objection. You guys know I give it to anyone can get it, right? I criticize anyone, but my objective is not to sway them that one party is better than another, and that's what he kind of alluding to. And now watch this because this is straight up blue MAGA nonsense here. I'll let the video speak for itself.
Why overwhelmingly do minorities and African Americans, Hispanic Americans, why are they still continuing to vote in large numbers in the Democratic Party?
Because they're a trillion times better than Republicans, and we have a two-party system. We don't have ranked choice voting. We still have first past the post voting. So either the Republican or the Democrat is going to win, and minority communities have accurately come to the conclusion, oh, the Democrats are just way better.
Kyle,
you know, he's trying to blame it on us. He's trying to blame it on us. Talking about minority communities, man. Get the fuck out. Go ahead, and whoever's gonna chime in.
Yeah, we know. Kyle got his post on the hood. Kyle got his post on the hood. Kyle was like about that to cry. Listen to this shit, man. Because, like, for example, we can cut this down very, very easy. Very, very easy. For one, that's false.
Right.
That's false. Like, factually, that is false. We take the fact that half of black people don't vote, and then among the black people who do vote, you got to take 8% who do that vote Republican Independent. I'm sorry, 20% that vote Republican Independent. So you're looking at around 35 to 40% at best. At best.
And more black men are shifting Republican, and that number is growing. So this wasn't a black person that said that to you, Kyle. So I'm not sure where you got that stat from.
But most importantly, he said that Democrats, he said it with his chest. Like, he truly believes in this shit. He says Democrats are a trillion times better. I'm gonna let the video play all the way through here, and then we're gonna dismantle this. We already got into it earlier, but I want you guys to hear him full-fledged Biden bro nonsense here.
Democratic Party.
Because they're a trillion times better than Republicans, and we have a two-party system. We don't have ranked choice voting. We still have first past the post voting. So either the Republican or the Democrat is going to win, and minority communities have accurately come to the conclusion, oh, the Democrats are just way better. They're just way better. Like 98% of the Republican Party wants to cut Social Security, wants to cut Medicare, wants to cut Medicaid, and the Democrats don't. Some of them do, but the overwhelming majority of them don't. So maybe that's why. Maybe because they're better on a lot of substantive issues. Now, that's not to say they're good. That's not to say they're perfect. They're far from it. But if you do an objective empirical analysis as to whose policies help regular working class people of color more, it's not close. It's not close. So that's why, Sean, that's why they do it.
That's so.
Jesus Christ.
Now that shit's gonna work. That shit's gonna be a banger for a shitload audience. But we are smarter than that, right? We know why that's bullshit. Like we are smarter to understand why that's bullshit. So for one, he lied. Like Democrats, they care for Medicaid. Joe Biden just threw millions of people off their health care.
Right.
And you're making the argument that this guy is a lesser evil after he threw millions of people off of their health care. Oh, so this is what happens when you are disconnected from the working class, because it was Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton that waged war against children and increased child poverty by cutting social spending. Not the Republicans. And you see the political fan fiction he wrote up. Like, it's Republicans are against social spending, Democrats are for social spending. Look at what happened. Look at the record. And you think that these black people and minorities that are in blue states, like I am, like people who are poor, and you think like, man, I know I'm poor. I know Democrats are beating our ass with the police state, but thank God we're not in a red state. Thank God they're doing it with compassion and care. Like, that's absurd, but I ran enough. Go ahead, guys. I just want to dismantle that first talking point because there's so much to dismantle. I just want to show you guys he's lying. When he says the Democrats are like pro-Medicaid, pro-healthcare, pro-working class, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. But anyway, continue, guys.
Kyle seems to forget, or he probably doesn't care about the fact that Biden promised to cancel student loan debt for students who attended HBCUs or who went to public colleges who make under $125,000 a year. Guess well, I don't think Kyle would care about that. I remember that. And I remember, when he mentioned that, I'm like, well, I didn't go to a HBCU, so, but whatever. Regardless, Biden didn't deliver on that shit.
Yep.
And then Biden had the nerve to attend Howard University to give the commencement speech, But I guess this is what happens when you hit 1 million, that you start saying this shit, I guess. But then again, that Kyle, I think he was on his way anyway, but I guess now he's on the corporate algorithm. He has to say this shit in order to maintain whatever deals or whatever he gets now. Now he's in that exclusive club on YouTube.
I'm gonna read this.
Because he was part of the
Paul, I'm going to read this tweet and I'll pass it to you right after I read the tweet. This is Savvy response to this. Most Black Americans don't vote. Most Democrats in office have done nothing to help Black communities. People vote them out of fear. Revolutionary leaders knew this was not the answer. The answer is to help each other. The Black Panthers knew this. So this is Savvy. But Paulo, I just want to read that, but go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, Kyle has actually criticized Democrats in the past for cutting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. That's just gone out the window now. This was, not even that long ago, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
and
I remember.
Other thing is that, sorry, you were saying, Nick?
So go ahead.
Okay. Whenever the Democrats pretend to fight for minorities like the trans community, the Black community, the whatever community, they do it in, such a weird, manipulative way that it's, very suspect. And as an example, Trump. So Trump banned, instated trans ban in the military. He stopped trans people from serving in the military. Joe Biden came in and overturned that ban I think, and then he let more minorities in the military. Like, this is how they fight for military minority rights. Oh yeah, come in the military. You can kill Black and brown people overseas too. Like, inclusion in the military, which I think is like, a lot of liberals and some leftists I see fighting for. Like, I think that's like some of the very risky things you do is fight for inclusion in the military. Like, I personally welcome them banning me next. Like, you know, I hope they want to ban me next. But like, the way they fight for military rights is really, it's like this really perverted way. It's just disgusting.
Yeah,
There's
I agree. I always thought that too.
I was gonna say, I look at the language, and when I hear catchphrases that I see a lot of troll accounts using, I know they're getting the talking points from the same place. So what we're hearing is this phrase used. Kyle Kulinski just used it, and I'm seeing it with a lot of trolls. We have first past the post voting. That phrase, I'm not saying the concept is new, but that phrase is new, and all of a sudden they're all using it. They're all getting the DNC and DNC affiliated PAC talking points. And what that means is like, whoever comes in first, winner takes all. Got it. All right, we've known this, but you're using this phrase. That lets me know you are allied with the forces of the Democratic political establishment. And anytime you criticize them, it's within the boundaries of a small space where you're allowed to criticize. What Cornel West's candidacy represents to me, and what I get from what he says is, we're not playing this game anymore. I'm going to talk to everyone, be they Trump supporter, Democrat, or independent, and I'm going to talk about everything and anything outside of this little box that the media, and now obviously the faux progressive left media, is allowing us to speak in. We are not going to get in a conversation about American workers. Don't need to have a conversation about who's better, Democrats or Republicans, because just look back 50 years, the decline of the American worker, and with big blips of increases in poverty, happened under both parties. Talk about Bill Clinton overturning, getting rid of what they called at the time welfare as we know it. You had a guarantee in what he called welfare as you know it. Now there's a 5-year time limit to get TANF benefits. So if you're poor for 6 years, you're shit out of luck. That was a Democrat. And yes, Republicans wanted it. But as the panel astutely has pointed out, Democrats are passing things Republicans only dreamed of, which means workers do not benefit from a conversation of who is the greater or lesser evil. Together, they represent a class alliance with the top anywhere between 20% and the top 1%. That class alliance hurts common, average, everyday working Americans. It kills nearly 70,000 of us a year because neither party wants to give us health care. And the point that everybody was making, which I love hearing, is, you're standing on the side of a river and you want to get across, and there's a guy with a boat who says, I'm never going to take you. That's the Republicans. And then there's the Democrats who say, well, I don't know that I can take you today, but I'll let you stand closer to the shore. And it's like, neither of those people is helping me materially. Neither of them. Together, they are making us feel defeated and like we have no power. The thing that I have the biggest problem with is I keep getting told time and time again, if we support third-party candidates such as Cornel West, we are helping usher in this is their hyperbole, the end of democracy and full-blown fascism in the United States. What you're telling us, what Kyle Kulinski is telling us, is that we do not have a right to push back against a required allegiance to a particular political party. That's the definition of fascism. It's a founding principle that you must support the party. No, we don't have to. We can do what we want. And yes, not voting is a legitimate choice. There's a whole bunch of folks who are saying that. It is purely fascist to require people to agree with you or shut up. What most disturbs me, and all right, I'm white, whatever white means, that's what I am. I live in this body. I've got all this born privilege I don't deserve, never earned. So is Kyle Kulinski. How dare you, Kyle Kulinski? And I'm calling you out specifically right now. How dare you tell Black Americans what they can and can't think or should think or what they're allowed to think? Who are you? I don't see any Black leftists on Kyle Kulinski's program. So you know what? If anybody should shut up, he needs to shut up. Listen, I don't know. Maybe the hair dye seeped into his brain. But this is not acceptable. White people, here's a rule. You don't get to tell marginalized populations who've suffered with oppression far greater and worse than you ever have how they can and can't express their dissatisfaction with the system that continues to oppress them. We don't get to do that. We just don't. So we get all this privilege, but you know what? We got to keep our mouths shut when it comes to that. And he needs to heed that because that's pretty.
He does. He's pretty disgusting. Go ahead, Nick. If you're going to say something, go ahead, Nick.
No, I have another video, another topic. But any final thoughts on the last topic? I don't want to cut anyone off. Whether anyone else want to chime in real quick?
Just real quick, because going off of what Anthony was saying, and I noticed that Kyle said this, and I noticed that even Crystal has said this before. And I noticed among discussions that I have with liberals that their way of trying to sympathize with the idea of voting within the duopoly, they would say, "Oh, if you kind of tell them why you may not vote Democrat or whatever, they will say, oh, I hear what you're saying, but we don't have ranked choice voting. So there's nothing you can do about it." I heard Kyle just say it. I know Crystal said it. And I know other people that I've talked to personally have said it. As if ranked choice voting is ever going to be a thing. Sorry. I know it's happening statewide in certain states. I know they're working on that. But at this point, that's never going to be a federal thing. Both parties will not allow that to happen. So, but they use that kind of as a ploy to say, I understand what you might be feeling, but unfortunately the things that you may want or what might work in terms of having somewhat more equitable elections, we don't have. So you are forced to pick. That's kind of what, what they allude to in terms of when you might say to them or give your reasoning as to why you may not vote Democrat more often than not, which I believe is somewhat disingenuous in terms of them kind of appeasing to you or in the line of trying to understand or sympathize how you might feel when we kind of give the argument of how Democrats, at least currently, have failed us. Yeah, that's all I just wanted to say because
we still I have another video I want to discuss since we on the topic of Democrats versus Republicans. There was an interview that caught my eye. Someone gave me a tip because they saw something funny, so I decided to check it out because otherwise I would never really check this out. So big shout out to my friend. They was like, hey, there's a particular moment in the interview to check out. So I was like, all right, I actually want to watch. I want to see what's going on between this Nina Turner and Dr. Cornel West interview. So this is, I don't know if Nina Turner, I don't think she does her show live. So I don't know exactly when it's a film, but it was released yesterday. So Dr. Cornel West is doing the tour. He went on CNN, then he went on Nina Turner, and then he went to the hood in RBN, right? So in the beginning of this interview, we're not going to watch the whole thing. There's a part that I found extremely funny because you had Nina Turner that was essentially begging him to run Democrat. So the same way that Jacobin and the progressive left, they got this friendly relationship with Dr. Cornel West because they was helping them with the Bernie campaign, and Dr. Cornel West still have that camaraderie with Nina Turner. You can see it in this conversation. But at the same time, they're like, yeah, Dr. Cornel West really love you, but it would be great if you ran Democrat, right? That's how these conversations go. And I knew it was going to go this way, but I didn't know Nina Turner would phrase it this way. I don't want to spoil it too much because I'll fast forward a lot. The first 14 minutes, I'm glad that you did not see this. Go ahead, CJ.
It's funny because, Nick, this is actually the next segment I was just about to do. So we're on the same page. I haven't watched this whole thing, but I have seen a snippet of the Democratic part. So I may have seen this part, but it's so funny how this is literally the topic I was just about to do. So, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was hoping I caught you off guard because this shit was funny to me. And Dr. Cornel West comes off in the responses very now. Meanwhile, I don't want to spoil it, but this is Nina Turner making this.
So it's obvious that the two major parties do not necessarily listen to what the American people want and what they need.
Now remember, 14 minutes of them bouncing left ideas off themselves. So this is where Nina Turner picked to choose this question now because she's like, I want to get the radical left out of the way. Now, after we talk all about that, how about running as a Democrat? Like that's always will be their pitch. Anyway,
Dr. West, why would you take a risk and run in the Green Party when you could have ran, this is another argument, as a revolutionary, freedom-fighting, anti-neoliberal Democrat?
Democrat. Yeah, see, things are getting oxymoronic when you start to
So if you guys missed that, Dr. Cornel West is extremely nice about it. But Nina Turner asked him a dumbass fucking question in the dumbest possible way you can possibly frame it. And Dr. Cornel West is baffled by her stupidity here. So she's like, whoa, Democrat. Revolutionary Democrat, that's oxymoron. Now let's watch it again, because I swear to God, I literally stopped, and that's why I got the tweet. It's doing numbers right now because people are like, what? This really happened? Because I saw that, like, dude, that's the funniest shit I've ever seen. But Dr. Cornel West says it in a very nice way. So listen to this part again.
But before you play it again, it's very interesting. She has to. It's like knowing that the word Democrat has so disgusting, has such a bad connotation.
Yeah,
she has to add all of these other adjectives.
She laid it on
revolutionary. Real thick.
She laid it on real thick.
Yes, CJ. That's such a good point.
So it's so ridiculous. It'll be like, me saying something that's dry, and then I'm using all these words to describe wet in order to describe dirt. Like I'm adding all this shit on top. This very free-flowing dirt, and it's very, it's very thirst quenching, and it's dirt. It's so ridiculous, the description that she tries to give to as a Democrat. But
that's why Dr.
Go ahead and
replay
it.
Destroys her in the most polite way possible. He was like, I'm sorry, that's the most oxymoronic shit I've ever heard in my life. But anyway, any take before, let's watch it one more time. And there's a little more context here. Let's watch the whole thing again, then I'm gonna get the panel in.
Healthcare in this country, corporations, we wouldn't have laissez-faire, government, laissez-faire going rampant in this country. Prescription drugs would be affordable in this country, so on and so forth. So it's obvious that the two major parties do not necessarily listen to.
But remember, the whole 14 minutes before this, you won't find a lot of objectable things they said because they were just hitting on the corruption of Democrats, corruption in the system, why we need to fight for people. Then she wait to hear, like, let's turn it around. Let's bring it home, baby.
Right. She just said both parties do not work for the working class.
Yeah.
She just said it. So
here she goes sheepdogging. Here you go. Let's watch it. Let's watch this.
What the American people want and what they need. But Dr. West, why would you take a risk and run in the Green Party when you could have ran, this is another argument, as a revolutionary, freedom-fighting, anti-neoliberal Democrat?
Democrat. Yeah, see, things are getting oxymoronic when you start talking about revolutionary Democrat these days.
Man just casually dismantles her in the most polite way possible.
But can I just
he baffled. He like, dude, that's the stupidest. He thinking inside like that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard in my life.
I think there are things I really like about Nina Turner. I think, except for the fact that she continually goes back to the Democratic Party after they cheated her out of like 2 elections. But I look at this still shot of her face. I think she knows what he's saying is true, which is perplexing to me, because why would you even ask the question? You can you could frame it and say, well, some people say you should run as a Democrat. What's your answer? But not like you really want to know. And he's like, are you asking me this? And he's probably thinking, you know what they did to you, right? Like, she was leading in the polls and then they supported her terrible opponent. I mean, come on. It's just, what is the hold on these people? I don't know what it is. It's bizarre.
Yeah, Jay, anything you want to add? Because we're gonna get to Cornel West's explanation, which is solid. And then Nina try to go with a follow-up after that because she's like, God damn, gotta pull him in. But anyway, Jay, I want to get your thoughts before we continue.
Yeah, I mean, she did run as a Democrat twice for the congressional seat, and then back during her Ohio Senate seat, and then worked on Bernie's campaign when he ran as a Democrat both times. So she knows what the strings are. Like, there's strings attached to running in the Democratic Party. You know, some of them include like having to give your supporter list to the party, having to donate a part of your funds to the party, having to endorse the nominee at the end. And who wants to fucking do that shit? You know, when you're trying to run against the Democrats, if you lose, which they'll make sure he loses if he runs as a Democrat, they'll be forced to essentially use his voter base and use his fundraising to support the party apparatus, the same apparatus that'll fuck him over in the first place. So the answer is obvious, and Nina knows it's obvious. Like, I cannot believe, I would find it hard to believe that she would not know that. So the fact that she's still asking that question after knowing what she does for years, I personally think it's just bad faith.
Yeah, CJ, I told you this shit's gonna be funny, didn't I? The Cornel West shit happened. Like, this shit is going to be great to watch these progressives trying to toe this line of like, man, I really like you talk to West, but that Green Party shit, I'm not allowed to go there. So let's watch it again. I'm allowed to play. I want you guys to see Dr. Cornel West's entire answer, but let's keep the comedy in there. So I'll show the answer again.
In the Green Party, when you could have ran, this is another argument, as a revolutionary, freedom-fighting, anti-neoliberal Democrat.
Yeah, see, things are getting oxymoronic when you start talking about revolutionary Democrat these days. There's some decent people in the Democratic Party. And of course, I always have a love of Brother Bernie. He's not in the Democratic Party, but he's working so closely with them now. But no, the Democratic Party is so undemocratic, unsocratic that they're not going to have primaries that allow for debates. It's hard to raise your voice that's critical of the Democratic Party if you're within the party. More and more, they're requiring a kind of presumptuous loyalty to the candidate. So it's hard to tell the truth about the candidate, but it's hard to tell the truth about the system and the empire that the candidate is.
Can you pause it here?
Head of.
Yeah.
So that the Democratic Party.
Do you think? Two things. Do you think? Because if you listen to what he's saying, it sounds like advice to Nina Turner to get the fuck out of the Democratic Party. If you listen to what he's saying, right? So do you think he's saying it so she can kind of hear it, or do you, or on the other side, do you think Nina Turner is listening and going, "Wow, yeah, maybe"? Like, you think she's listening as that's advice directed to her? Go ahead.
Because remember, the biggest criticism of Dr. West that people have is that he's too loving on these motherfuckers, right? And that's why we had that initial flinch. We're like, there's something like, you don't have to be nice, but that's just who he is, and that's a flaw, and that's something that we had to accept. But and we can continue to push him on. Don't get twisted. But he says that first, but he also trying like, I can say that nice part, but this is the reality. Like the Democratic Party is corrupt, and that way he said earlier, and that's. The message is most important, and obviously we all want him to have more fire when he said these things. I think we all agree with it, but the message is that the Democratic Party we should not run and operate on, and I think that's important. Well, obviously, when I heard that part about I like some Democrats. Well, again, he says that because that's the kind of guy he is. I just wish he didn't don't say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, let's play a little bit more because I want you guys to see Nina's follow up to this as well, and then the exchange overall. It's not too long, not a long clip overall, but let's see how far we get to it.
That's critical of the Democratic Party. If you're within the party, more and more they're requiring a kind of presumptuous loyalty to the candidate. So it's hard to tell the truth about the candidate, but it's hard to tell the truth about the system and the empire that the candidate is the head of. So that the Democratic Party more and more is using progressives as window dressing, and in the end, at their core, is really it's really corporate wealth, it's really corporate power, and militarism as well. And most of them vote for expansion of the military budget. Most of them don't really want to cut back on the 800 military units around the world, or U.S. troops in over 150 countries. They don't want to deal with the need for the mass.
By the way, I watched the whole clip, the whole video. They didn't have any foreign policy conversation. So, like Nina Turner, they brought on to talk about domestic shit, right? And you see how Dr. Cornel West himself had to bring up foreign policy. And that's how deeply and serious the progressives are. You got the commander-in-chief, someone who's running to be commander-in-chief, and you just talk about domestic shit, right?
But
anyway,
I think,
if my memory serves.
But to be fair, like, I think generally as a country, we don't do a good job of talking about foreign policy. Because we're so, I think just so, you know, having lived abroad, you know, and being born and raised abroad, like Americans are just so insular in terms of, oh, this shit is about us, and like having this kind of, and we see it in terms of how we operate in terms of the world. Like we're number one in everything. We have to be like the big bad and everything, you know, and not necessarily consider, you know, other countries and their perspective on things. I don't think it's by accident. I just think that the general go-to in this country is, you know, we're just so submersed in.
That's why we're trying to get the change, because that's
right.
why I'm trying to get people to snap into it. Like it never made sense to me, because I learned how the three branches of government work. So it never understood to me, like, why do people talk about presidency without the foreign policy being the lead?
Right.
I'm not saying that the influence of the president is important on domestic, but why is that the fucking lead? Like that's ridiculous. And if you want to be someone who just cares most about domestic policy, I can make the argument. Many people can make the argument that you shouldn't run for Congress because they still vote. Right. They still vote, but at least you have more influence on domestic policy as someone part of Congress. That's why it never makes sense for people who are weak on foreign policy, like Marianne Williamson, to like go for straight for presidency. Stay in your goddamn lane. That's why Dr. Cornel West, at least, like whether realistic or not, at least he's a foreign policy led person first. He Palestinian activist first, and he run for president. Right. That's why. Right. Anyway,
I think given that with Cornel West, you know, him having more philosophical, theological background, it makes sense that he's going to think more globally in that regard. So I'm glad he was able to kind of insert a little something in terms of foreign policy here. But I think and I definitely agree with you, Nick. I think especially with independent media, we definitely need to change. We have to be more encompassing in terms of thinking about foreign politics as how we affect other countries, because I'll say this, in every country that I've lived in or I've been to, they know about American policy to some degree, you know, but we can't say shit about the other countries that we can affect. And I think
to that point,
we have to be more cognizant of that too.
To that point, Colin, there's an article where the Cuban, I think it was the Cuban president, I hope I don't misspoke there, but there's some Cuban high official that said the Biden administration, Cuban embargo and Cuban policies has been worse than Trump. Like they were talking about, like, we don't even view American politics as Republican. Like we don't even view that shit as that. We like, all right, who's leading the empire now? That's why it's absurd to international leftists and people international mind, like I try to be, that people like Kyle Kulinski and Nina Turner trying to paint one party, one empire manager better than the other, considering the track record. But anyway, that last pause is my bad. I apologize for that. But anyway, I want to get to at least Nina Turner's response. That was my bad for stopping.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna let it play a little bit more, because I want to get at least Nina Turner's follow-up question, and then we wrap this segment up.
The redistribution downward. They don't want to deal for the massive move of monies to military, but they get austerity like when it comes to social needs, when it comes to schools, jobs with a living wage, decent housing, quality education, and so forth. So in that sense, I must say, one of the lessons I learned from Brother Bernie, and I'll never forget being with that brother in Nevada. Oh, boy, that was a sublime moment, because it looked like we was going to win.
Yeah, we would have, Dr. West, had it not
Brother
been.
Obama made that call. Obama made that call. Neoliberals drop out.
Dropped out the race.
So he's reminding her that
anybody was burning. I said to myself, but these folk would rather lose than change.
That's it. And you know who's gonna lose the most is the everyday people that you talk about on a regular basis.
That's the key, right?
They're the biggest losers. But Dr. West, for those who are not neoliberals, those in the grassroots progressive movement who would say, "Dag, Doc, had you, I mean, running as a Democrat, even reluctantly so, would give you a better opportunity in terms of raising money, etc." So I want you to speak to.
She's like, don't you understand that you can grift easier if you run as a Democrat?
This is terrible, man.
This is beyond terrible. This is beyond terrible because this is coming from Nina Turner, the person the Democrats destroyed twice. So the person who failed to run in the Democratic Party, like, hey, how about you run in the Democratic Party and fail like I did? But sorry, I want to get you guys in. This is unbelievable.
And she literally,
you want time, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're cutting out for me. Was someone else going?
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, she literally said this directly after he reminds her about the phone call. Like, Bernie was winning. He was running away with it. He plowed through Nevada, right? Like he was leading with what term is the most acceptable? Latinx, Latino, Latina.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm told. So he was leading with that, and there was a point in time when Bernie was leading with the black vote too. So that whole trope about Bernie didn't have support from the black community. Right now, Biden's approval rating with the black community, last I checked, was 56%. It is. If that's even that high, that is historically low for a Democrat. You cannot win with that. So he brings it up. He goes, look, remember when that call was made? And then instead of dealing with that, her response is, but why won't you run as a Democrat?
It's so ridiculous.
I don't get it. I don't know what's happening.
Go ahead, Colin. Go ahead.
I find it very hard to believe, and I'm going to speak well of Nina Turner in this. I find it very hard to believe that this is what she really thinks. I'm sure that this might be someone within TYT or whoever who her handlers are who forced her to ask these questions because she knows better than this. She has to know better than this than to look this stupid on purpose. No, I this really blows my, and just the way she just kind of casually just asked that, she knows better than this.
Her job and
just listen to her tone.
What was that? What was that, Jay?
I mean, I was to add on to Colin's point. Just listen to her tone, like when she's asking Dr. West these questions.
I'm gonna play it again. I'm gonna let it play a little bit more so you guys see more of the exchange because the question alone is pause worthy. Because I'm like, the whole conversation, this is where you're going to do a follow-up pushback. At no point during the conversation was she like, nah, Dr. Cornel, let me push back on you. This is the one. And this is after doing the past. Yeah, I hear you, understand. Yeah, but what about running as a Democrat? You have a better chance. Like, these people, they sound like it's literally psychotic at this point. Like, how many times, like, you got screwed. Bernie, like, Dr. Cornel West in the previous answer just reminded you how the primary was rigged. And you're still like, why don't you try? Anyway, let me play it.
And you know who's gonna lose the most is the everyday people that you talk about on a regular basis.
That's the key, right?
They're the biggest losers. But Dr. West, for those who are not neoliberals, those in the grassroots progressive movement who would say, "Dag, Doc, had you, running as a Democrat, even reluctantly so, would give you a better opportunity in terms of raising money, etc." So I want you to speak to the people who are vibing with your message, but just believe that because the two parties have crushed third parties so much that.
But you did great though.
even reluctantly, you would have had a better chance running as a Democrat, even though you're not of it, just using it as a tool? What do you say to them?
I was telling them that the Democratic Party has a long history of crushing the progressives within its own ranks. And when they don't do
He keeps dismantling her in one sentence. Now that's the second time that happened.
Yeah, but the thing is, Nick,
Go ahead.
there's literally no way that I keep listening. There's no way that both of them are not thinking about what he's saying applies to her. There's no way that he's able to be saying this in front of her when she is the person. So when you're saying, when she said, oh, us people who are not neoliberals, we are the good ones in the Democratic Party, what would you say to them? She's one of them. So the answer he gives applies to her. Nina, you're one of the people that ran. You're one of the people that he's referring to, that the Democratic Party historically crushed people like you, and you were crushed twice. What are these people thinking that we're going to do? Those people over at The Nation, the Nathan Johnsons over at Current Affair, who are so want this guy to run as a Democrat, but is it that they really think he has a better chance? Or is it that they really understand if he's going to be crushed, and then he has brought in those non-establishment people back to the Democratic Party?
And to add to that, C-Day, like, hearing this the second time, she said something very slick. She was like, for people who work in grassroots, who want you, something towards the lines of possibly want you to run as a Democrat. Like, unless they're really hacks, I don't know anyone in the grassroots that want them to vote.
I was about to bring this up. You know what that is? She's saying, I got my audience, it filled up people who are progressive, but they only support Democrats. So what's your message to them? That's what the question is, essentially.
But don't associate that with grassroots. But they're not grassroots, though, Nick.
They're not.
They're
but
not.
That's Nina. She's going to fill that in.
But I'll tell you who it is. It's the PMCs who may have these larger organizations. And I know plenty of them in DC that talk a good game, but actually don't do shit. That's who she's really talking to. It's not people like me who screw the red-blue game. Like, we're just doing it as far as class. So so she was very slick in trying to make it, like, in terms of thinking of the grassroots, in terms of, she wasn't talking about class there. She was talking about the PMCs, as you said, who watch TYT or all these other big channels. That's who she's communicating to, not us.
Go ahead, CJ.
I was going to say, people like Nina Turner and the professional managerial class, to your point, Colin, people like Nina Turner, this is what they do all the time. They take language that does not apply to them, and then they use it. This is why they use words like revolutionary. Oh, part of the movement. What fucking movement are you part of? They're just using our language, and this is another case where she's using our language, because if you guys that she's talking about like him so much, what's stopping you from voting for him? What's stopping you from voting for him, the guy that you love so much and you agree with all of his politics? What's stopping you from voting for him? Go ahead,
remember what Crystal said? Crystal said, I would love a theoretical third party that sprung up out of nowhere, but this is reality. So what's she saying? She's like, I would love for a third party to come, but I'm not going to help you guys get there. Like, only once you guys get about to win, then I will support you guys. That's the ultimate cowardice. The ultimate cowardice is like, I like your idea, but I'm not going to support you unless you win. What kind of shit is that? What kind of bullshit is that? But anyway, let me.
But even Nina Turner, though, like, just real quick, I want to say, like, during her first run against Chantal Brown, she was outpolling Chantal at, like, I think 60 to 20 or something like that. And then, like, a couple months later, when it comes time for the election, she just barely lost. So she was going to win this, like, easily, but the party made sure that a Democrat like Nina Turner made sure that she would lose. And this was after Nina Turner, like, started using talking points like access to healthcare and partying out with the card sellers. So she was doing what they wanted her to do, and despite having this overwhelming lead, they still made sure that a Democrat, Nina Turner, still lost to a Democrat that they prefer. So, Nina and just from the tone that she even asked these questions, like it does seem disingenuous. Like, what would she couldn't even say it with a straight face when she was saying, "Why don't you run as like anti-neoliberal, freedom fighting Democrat?" Like she said it in like such a like she could barely hold her laughter back. She knows it's bullshit, but she has to like make those talking points anyway.
Dr.
To
Cornel West
stay on that payroll.
Dr. Cornel West was baffled by her stupidity after asking that. So let's we did the last time we gonna play it. So we let finish.
Yeah, let's play it
up. So this last time we let play all the way through. I want you guys to hear his full answer. So we
not neoliberals, those in the grassroots progressive movement who would say, "Dag, Doc, had you, running as a Democrat, even reluctantly so, would give you a better opportunity in terms of raising money, etc." So I want you to speak to the people who are vibing with your message, but just believe that because the two parties have crushed third parties so much that even reluctantly you would have had a better chance running as a Democrat, even though you're not of it, just using it as a tool. What do you say to them?
I would tell them that the Democratic Party has a long history of crushing the progressives within its own ranks. And when they don't do that, they co-opt them. They incorporate them. They deodorize, sterilize, sanitize them into their mainstream. That's the challenge right now. Sister ALC, God bless her. See, she come in full of fire. Oh, she's swinging like Muhammad Ali when she came in. Now things have gotten smoothed out. Now things have been incorporated and co-opted in that way. Now she still got a long life, so she can change. But we got to just tell the truth. People can see the transformation. They can see the evolution in that way, you see. Now she still got some fire, I'm sure. She's always going to have some fire. But we have to be honest about it. The Democratic Party specializes in that. So you end up with all of these black faces in high places, and they can't say a mumbling word about mass incarceration, can't say a mumbling word about poverty and homelessness in a consistent way, and won't say a mumbling word about Palestinians. And you say, what happened? What happened was they got co-opted. They got big positions. They got status. They become these would be a way of talking about it though. They become peacocks, strutting around. Look at me. I'm the head of this. I got this status. I got this big position. Yeah. We can hear Malcolm X saying peacocks strut because they can't fly.
Come on. Talk about it.
We want to fly like eagles. Keep track of what's happening all the way down in the lower strata, in the hoods, and on the reservations, in the barrios, in the ghettos, in the working class communities, no matter what colors. 1 out of 8 folk who voted for Trump voted for Brother Bernie. So just because Trump's a neo-fascist doesn't mean everybody who voted for him is a neo-fascist. They tired of the arrogance and the hypocrisy of the Democratic Party. They tired of the arrogance and the hypocrisy of the professional managerial strata. And they want somebody to speak to their needs. 40% of U.S. population who can vote don't vote at all.
That's right. And the majority of voters
who vote for the Green Party would not vote for any party whatsoever.
That's true, Dr. West. And the majority of voters don't even identify with Republican or Democrat. I mean,
but you guys pause it here. But you guys want him to run as a Democrat, even though like it's so ridiculous. But Dr. Cornel West absolutely destroyed the professional managerial class, destroyed Nina Turner. I don't know if Nina Turner understood he was talking about her. It's almost like he did. He's talking about you, Nina Turner. He's talking about you. And then lastly, the thing he says about AOC is one thing for all of us to be saying this about AOC. When it's coming from Cornel West, this is what I love, Nick. When we're saying it, them Negroes, they don't know what they're saying over there. You know what I'm saying? But when Shama Sawant, when Chris Hedges, when Cornel West says the same exact thing, then they want to be, that's exactly Nina Turner. Nina Turner, that's exactly what we said about AOC, and you said she's the best we got. This is exactly what Cornel West is saying. Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, he destroyed her. He destroyed LC to her face. But go ahead, guys. That was amazing. Go ahead, guys.
Oh, we thought we were gonna chime in, Colin.
No, I was just agreeing.
That was a great.
I'm down for one more story, but you guys see how easy it is to dismantle those talking points. So like I don't know like what Nina Turner really expected, and I know one of you guys, I forgot which one said like she was ordered to ask those questions, but you guys see how they're compelled to bring him into the Democratic Party. That's why it was very interesting. See, at the very beginning, I'm like, dude, this is gonna be very interesting to see how this play out. To see these people do this dance between pretending to be revolutionary, while at the end of the day, their loyalty will forever be the Democratic Party. So Dr. Cornel West is going to be a big test, and we already seen the people who failed initially. I saw someone say, I wish I can give him credit because I didn't make this up, but someone said Dr. Cornel West running as the People's Party first was actually a high-key 3D chess move because it exposed the professional managerial class when he eventually switched to green. There was other people like, oh man, if only you ran as a great party.
And now,
now, motherfucker. So like in hindsight, like that was a 3D chess move because he forced the professional managerial class to show their cards early, and then they showed their cards early, and then Dr. Cornel West was like, all right, now that I did what you said, I'm a Green Party person. Now what? Now, and then we made a lot of videos mocking the people who didn't like, yeah, I know I said you should run as a Green, but now I think you should run as a Democrat. He forced them to show their hand, which is, once again, I didn't make that theory yet, but it was, I don't think he did it on purpose, but it was an accidental 3D chess move. But anyway, that's my last point on topic. Any last thoughts? And I mean, CJ, I'm down for one more topic today.
We can do one more.
But anyone else want to chime in before we move on? Going once, going twice? All right, CJ.
Yeah, so the next we got to do the thumbnail. We got a couple of topics we're not going to get to, but we have to get to at least the stuff that's on the thumbnail. So let's get to this next one. And that, where is the Hunter Biden? Oh, right here. Hunter Biden story we can cover now. So the Libertarian Party showing racism towards Nina Turner, we'll have to shelve that. And then, Nick, we'll probably cover this on Friday, Nick and CJ show. The Senate passed a bill that prevents any future president from leaving NATO. So they see Trump could possibly win. So they said, oh, no. This guy is not going to take us out of NATO, and no future president will be doing that. So the Senate just passed a bill about that. It was Tim Kaine's bill. Tim Kaine and Mark Rubio. So those stories will push until tomorrow. If Nick and I come back on, we don't know yet, but if we come back tomorrow for the Nick and CJ show, we will cover those stories. So then let's go to this Hunter Biden story, and it's real simple. Hunter Biden story, the reporter that broke the news about the Hunter Biden laptop was on Capitol Hill today testifying, and we're going to listen to her testimony, and her name is journalist Emma Jo Morrison. Oh, like Emma Jo, like a Southern hyphenated. Oh, I haven't seen that hyphenated sort of thing in like literally years, but Emma Jo Morris, who broke the Hunter Biden laptop story for the New York Post, but was immediately censored by the state on social media in an attempt to influence the 2020 election, just delivered a mind-boggling testimony on the extent of censorship in America. She is now a political editor for Breitbart. So let's listen to a lot of this. It's a 5-minute video. We'll listen to a lot of this and then react. So I can't see you guys. Let me know when you want to stop, if you want to stop and chime in on some of the things that she says. But let's listen.
Ayes and 8 noes.
The motion to table is agreed to. We will now move to our second witness. Ms. Morris, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks so much for inviting me. My name is Emma Jo Morris, politics editor at Breitbart. I'm here today because I published a series of news stories 3 years ago in October of 2020 about Hunter Biden's now infamous laptop, also known as the laptop from hell, which is seen as some of the most scandalous reporting of the last decade. What was more scandalous than the reporting itself, though, was the fact that it exposed the unholy alliance between the intelligence community, social media platforms, and legacy media outlets. At the time, I was deputy politics editor at the New York Post, and my reporting showed that despite then candidates Joe Biden's repeated and furious denials, he was apparently involved in the foreign business deals of his family. Over several days, just weeks before Americans would vote for their next president, I revealed verified, authentic emails from the Biden scion's hard drive showing Ukrainian business partners receiving leaks from the Obama White House. I documented an off-the-books meeting between then Vice President Biden and a Ukrainian energy executive and introduced the world to the big guy who got action on a deal with CEFC, China Energy Company. The Post published exactly how the material for the reporting was obtained, even identifying our sources, as well as a federal subpoena showing the FBI was in possession of the material the story was based on and had been since December of 2019. But when the stories appeared on social media that morning, the venue where millions of Americans go to find their news and editors to get their angles, within hours, the reporting was censored on all major platforms on the basis of being called hacked or Russian disinformation. Twitter refused to allow users to share the link to the stories, banned the links from being shared in private messages, a policy.
So let me speak on this part, because I do remember this. And, you know, I don't know if this was pre-FHL, which is now RBN, or not, or in the early. I remember not being able to share this story. At first, when I heard it, I was like, this is nothing. This is a stupid story.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then when I start to hear details, I was like, wow, what is this? And then when I heard that you couldn't share the link, I tried to share the link through a DM, and it wouldn't let it send. And I thought that was amazing. And this is something that Twitter has set up to prevent the transmission of child pornography. They're using this to stop Hunter Biden. And like she said, FBI knew that this story was true. The FBI knew this story was true when they came out and did all this stuff and trying to act like this was Russian different information. Like she just said, they had in their possession already. And so they knew it was true and they just still went along with it. So just wanted to point that part out. I personally could not share the story when I was trying to share it through a DM. So let's go back a few seconds and let her finish.
2019. But when the stories appeared on social media that morning, the venue where millions of Americans go to find their news and editors to get their angles, within hours, the reporting was censored on all major platforms on the basis of being called hacked or Russian disinformation. Twitter refused to allow users to share the link to the stories, banned the links from being shared in private messages, a policy, by the way, that's used to clamp down on child porn, and locked the post out of its verified account. Facebook said it would curb distribution and reach of the links on its platform. However, the stories were not based on hacked materials, nor were they Russian disinformation. And despite those claims appearing to come out of thin air at the time, we would eventually learn that they actually didn't come out of thin air at all. On October 19th, 5 days after the Post began publishing, Politico ran a story headlined, "Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinfo, dozens of former intel officials say." God, I can't even say that with a straight face, you know?
Dozens intelligence officials. This is why anytime they have like on cable news and they go, oh, CIA intelligence official, they might as well say top liar. They might as well say top fibber or something, whatever word you want to use to describe a liar, because that's literally what they're here. So intelligence officials. So what they did, in order for the population, for the people to go, okay, we trust you, they go, these top officials that have impeccable records of telling the truth, look what they say about Hunter Biden's story. It's a lie, when they knew at the time it was not. So what is our intelligence community here to do but to lie to us? Right. What are they actually here to do? Are they collecting intelligence to protect us or to lie to us? Go ahead, Nick, or whoever.
And to your point, CJ, and I'll pass to the rest of the panel, Chuck Schumer literally said on, it was like a CNN or MSNBC interview where he was like, dude, if the fucking intelligence community don't like you, they had 2 ways to Sundays to fuck with you. He's talking about Donald Trump. He's like, dude, Donald Trump fucked up. He made enemies of the intelligence agencies, and they about to fuck him up. That was a giant political gaffe because that was Chuck Schumer telling the truth on national TV, and now people pretend he didn't say that. And that's common knowledge among DC. If you fuck with the intelligence agency, they will destroy you by underhanded means if possible. But I'll pass the panel and we can continue after the panel, CJ.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys remember, but pretty recently, Mike Pompeo came out and said he was giving some speech somewhere, but it aired on TV. He was like, "Yeah, we at the CIA, we take courses on spreading disinformation, on lying to the fucking public. We take entire courses on that. A lot of what we said is flat out fucking bullshit." And he said this knowing that he's on camera, knowing that it's going to be aired, and he still said it anyway. I don't know if you guys saw that clip, and he was laughing it off like it was like some joking thing. Ha ha ha! We lied to everybody.
No, I saw that.
And so the fact that he's that fucking open and brazen about it. Just imagine the shit they don't share with us.
Yeah.
Well, they can afford to do that because it doesn't affect them. They're the elites, so they will be just fine. They will be protected. It's the rest of us that's going to get fucked up. So of course he's going to say that with a straight face. It's not going to affect him unless he does some shit.
Let's continue with the video.
Politico printed a letter completely uncritically from veteran members of the U.S. intelligence community, falsely claiming that the Post expose has, quote, all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. My God. Most notable among the signatories of that letter were Jim Clapper from former DNI, Michael Hayden, former CIA, John Brennan, former CIA, despite having...
Clapper and Brennan go on cable news all the time. Yeah. These are the liars. These two go on cable news all the time. I just saw them on there last week. And they bring them, these are the heavy hitters that they bring in when they need to tell really big lies so that you have somebody that's decorated, that gives you believability. Look, he's impeccable record. Absolutely. Look at all the shit that, all the things that's on. That's to make you think he's telling the truth. Absolutely. When they're not.
Having such damaged credibility following their participation in the Russia collusion conspiracy theory. A few days later, on October 22nd, when Biden appeared in the second presidential debate and was confronted with the facts of the Post reporting, he said to Trump, quote, 50 former national intelligence professionals said this. What he's accusing me of is a Russian plot. But it was not. And he knew that.
He knew that.
Now, fast forward to this year, 3 years later. Just last spring, House investigators revealed it was a call by now Secretary of State Antony Blinken to former acting CIA Director Michael Morell that prompted the spy letter published by Politico, which bypassed agency approval processes that would have been normally applied. It is also now known that ahead of my reporting, federal agencies were priming social media companies to execute an operation to discredit it. According to internal documents released by Elon Musk upon his acquisition of Twitter, the FBI and other intelligence community members essentially directed the platform's censorship operation, in part externally by working with top management and in part internally by social media companies hiring eye-popping numbers of agency alumni. Journalist Michael Schallenberger reported, based on documents he obtained from Musk, that during all of 2020, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies repeatedly primed Twitter executives to dismiss reports of Hunter Biden's laptop as a Russian hack and leak operation. Feds arranged for top secret security clearances to be granted to Twitter management and even had encrypted messaging networks set up, which they dubbed a virtual war room. To this day, hundreds of people from the intelligence community work at social media companies. Over the last few years,
hundreds, and I can stop here in the video. Yeah. Hundreds of people work at social media companies, and we, through the Twitter files, we found out about, or at least I found out about, I can't remember the name of his name, but the person who was running it, former FBI, one of the alphabets, he was running Twitter, not the president, but he was part of Twitter. He got hired. Why do you think so you in an intelligence business in the government and you go, I'm looking for a new career. Let me go to Twitter. Who does that? Nobody, right. Like you would go into some sort of private practice, private consulting. You're doing that as to go in and censor. That would be the only reason that a former, and not just a former, several former intelligence sort of officers or employees now working for social media, for Facebook, for Twitter. I'll pass it to
I'll pass the
panel before we
I have a contribution to this story. I think it's relevant, but I'll pass to the panel after you guys chime in real quick.
Okay, yeah. So back in like 2017 or something, people had expected Hillary Clinton to win the election, and a leak came out basically showing some potential members of Hillary's cabinet. There was Sheryl Sandberg, who is the chief operating officer of Facebook, who was set to have a seat in Hillary Clinton's cabinet. And then fast forward to 2019, 2020, there was a Twitter executive who was a member of Kamala Harris's campaign. So the fact that we have these social media people that are in close ties with Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, these high State Department officials, like, it just shows you that, like, if you don't think censorship is going to happen, if you go against their propaganda, you know, I got a bridge to sell you. The other thing I wanted to say is that I don't know if you guys saw that Oliver Stone documentary about Ukraine. It was called, I think, Ukraine on Fire. It was the first part of a 3-part documentary. The third part's coming out, I think, later this year. But in the second part, they highlight the Democrats, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and Hillary Clinton's collusions and ties with the Ukrainian government, with the Ukrainian officials and members of their Rada. And they didn't want that to, in an effort to like downplay the level of collusion, they basically came out with this bullshit Trump Russia hoax, and they just ran with that in the media. So as a way to give cover for themselves. So that way, if you keep if you keep pointing at Trump Russia, no one's ever going to look at you with your collusion with the Ukrainian government. That's just the one thing. I wasn't able to confirm that anywhere else, but that was highlighted in the documentary. And some of the details were pretty shocking about that. So
yeah,
and they end up using that strategy.
Yeah. Anything else quickly on this before? Because I got one more thing I want to add on the Hunter Biden story. The funny thing, we just saw this person speak and lay out the facts on how the FBI knew about Hunter Biden laptop. We know these things for a fact. You have IRS whistleblowers exposing the fact that the government agency was taking their light on Hunter Biden because he's the son of the president. So much shit is being uncovered. But look at the role of AOC.
Oh, God.
And the progressive left. So despite all this information, this is the wavelength that AOC is operating on. Let's
brought us here. And when we talk about political influence, we are not here today, unfortunately, because the facts have brought us here. We are here today because Donald Trump is exerting an influence campaign in Congress when he is no longer president of the United States.
So despite all we just heard, the FBI covering up and lying about the Hunter Biden laptop for the media, according to AOC, there's no facts on their side, man. It's just Trump doing political games. You guys see what her job is?
Yep.
Not for the proletariat, for the Democratic Party. But anyway, that's my quick contribution to that story. Anyone want any reactions before? At least I'll probably gotta get out here soon. Any reactions?
Yeah, I just think it's relevant that these whistleblowers are coming out. One says he's a Democrat and saying that, I mean, if you look at it in its entirety, the charges are that Hunter Biden used, way back when his father was vice president, the influence of his father's office to gain money for him and his family. Mm-hmm. And then whoever the big guy is, because that guy gets 10%. I wish I was the big guy. And this is coming off of Democrats, and I think rightly so, being pissed off and upset about Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, getting $2 billion from the murderous dictatorship known as the Saudi government. Every single time something horrendous happens that shows corruption, same thing happened with like sexual harassment and assault allegations. both parties had candidates credibly accused. We only believe the ones against the people we don't like. How about this? Both parties have sexual predators that have been presidents. Both parties have family members of these presidents and vice presidents that have become insanely rich simply
Both parties
because
pretend Jeffrey Epstein only like one of them. Both parties
right.
pretend.
And it's this is why we cannot fight corruption in government as long as this two-party duopoly is in power, because either you're upset about corruption or you're not. Hunter Biden is corrupt. I mean, talk about money laundering, selling your art when you are a shitty artist. I mean, he's nobody, right? He just decided I'm going to do art now. That is to get money from people.
Absolutely.
Laundering it through your very mediocre, and that's being kind, your very mediocre art, which he probably didn't even paint. Probably paid somebody to do it. I don't know. When that corruption is going on, and we just got off of Trump steering foreign dignitaries to stay at the Trump Towers, it's like this corruption is rampant. And by the way, we didn't talk about this, but the Supreme Court of the United States is a sewage drain of corruption on both sides.
Yeah.
You know how they get away with it? They write books. Has anybody, because I read a lot, any of you read a book by a Supreme Court? No. What's her name? I think it was Sonia Sotomayor, wrote a children's book.
Yes.
Never thought about doing that before.
Yes.
She could come, and what is that? And then
Now she's not the fucking Seuss.
and then she made her staff would call the places she was going to speak and say, you are expected to purchase X number of books. That's money laundering, right? But they're legally allowed to do it. So what ends up happening? Corruption keeps going on and on and on. Team Red and Blue will point the fingers. Look, Hunter Biden, I mean, if I didn't know any better, I would think he was Sarah Palin's son. That family is all right? But it's looking a lot better than this. And it's sad. And my last comment is like, that whole thing about the laptop. Of course, when you saw him interviewed, he never said it's not mine. He was like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, dude, he lost his laptop. Like, if you lose your car keys temporarily, that's one thing. So don't tell me that a guy who loses a $1,500 laptop won't lose a $100 bag of cocaine in the White House. Like, come on. We know this behavior. Okay, so
that's true. That's true. But listen, guys, I have a radio start. I got a sound check in 5 minutes. Nick, if you can close out, we only got about 4 super chats, and then let everybody comment, and then you can close out. But I do got to go because I got to get ready for the sound check in 5 minutes, and I'll be on Misty's radio show, Comrade Misty. So, all right, guys, I will see you later, and thanks for joining RBN panel and chat again today. So I'll see you guys.
All right, we got just 4 quick super chats. Thank you for $5, Black Floyd. It is perverse that a society that has been overwhelmingly racist, fascist, and classist now consider itself the arbiter of such moral crimes.
Yeah,
that's the same argument that we make all the time on RBN. Based comment is always by Black Floyd. Thank you for the $5. Luis Cal called Tucker a Putin. He did a Putin simp because he doesn't want to give Ukraine more weapons. And if it wasn't for clips like that, I would never see what this guy says. I can only imagine the garbage heap that is his entire channel. Like I only seen those few clips that go viral on Twitter every once in a while. But his whole channel, Jesus Christ, I can only imagine. Yes, I'm not surprised at all that you're a Putin simp because you want peace. Ridiculous. Thanks for the $5. Niz Michael Smith. When Marianne talks about policy, all I hear is Cal Kulinski's voice. The social democrat coward who refuses to speak to anyone to his left. Yeah, he'll speak to Vosh, but God forbid he ever speak to a black leftist ever in his goddamn life.
Right.
Like the farthest left he going is Ben Dixon, who's a Democrat. That's as far left as he will ever go. I got one more, and I'll open the panel for last thoughts just for a second time. Thank you for $10 to name my taco. Y'all are too nice. I don't get that too often. They're narcissists. Kyle, Jenk, AOC. They don't want him to succeed with his or our plan because they sold out for no reason, even though proved how bad the Democrat Party are. Yeah, everyone know the Democrat Party is rigged. They just want them to go through the process again because they make a lot of money doing that. And then they say, how dare you guys accuse us of that? Are you guys accusing us of being corrupted by money? Only they are allowed to be corrupted by money. We are above that. Anyway, last one. And then we got like our super chats. I think for the $5, Dominic, Joe Biden's doctor told him that he had dementia and COVID-19. Biden said, well, at least I don't have COVID-19. Thank you for the $5. Dominic, I'm going to get Colin here. Any last quick thoughts before you wrap up? Anything you want to plug? Any new news network? And then
I'm trying to think if there's anything going on. Actually, yeah. I'm going to be on Harlan's Media with Kit on next Monday, I believe at 10 Eastern, so 9 Central. And then just for the most part, you can find me on INN News with my partner, Beef Wieland, on INN Wednesday nights at 9 Eastern Standard Time. Next week, I think we're scheduled to have Jose Vega on as a guest. Yesterday, I had DJ Joe Nice, who's a good friend of ours, on the show of the network. So please feel free to check that out. And you can find all of my links at indienews.network.
Thank you for joining us as always, Colin.
Thank you.
Any last thoughts? Jay? Anything you want to say? Jay manager on social media. He's part of the crew at RBN. Always good to have you on. Any last thoughts or anything you want to plug?
Yeah, no less thoughts for now, but it was a great panel, and thank you for having me on, guys.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have you back on. And Zink is another recurring guest. Always great having you in conversation with us. Any last thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, very quickly, I just feel like, is there a possibility of you guys getting Lupe Fiasco on? Because that would be, I would love to hear a conversation with him. I know he came out with some really supportive statements about Cornel West, right after he announced. I was just wondering if he's been on. I haven't seen him interviewed about it. And
I usually don't go for celebrities. I remember I took my shot at Ice Cube just because he put that post up. I don't really care if he say yes or no. If he's down for it, I'm open for it. But it'd be interesting to see why. It'd be interesting to see. I think because I think Dr. Cornel West. I asked him about it, and he knew Lupe Fiasco since he was a kid. Like it's crazy how many people knows him. So I wonder if he actually woke or he just know Dr. Cornel West. It's just one of those. But,
I just wondered. I was wondering what his perspective was, and love to hear him speak about it. And that's that. And I just want to say, I've got a thick skin, like all of us do on Twitter. I've just noticed more and more trashing of West lately. They're stepping it up, and I've mentioned to a few people who, the latest I saw was Cornel West has no business running for president. He's deeply unqualified, like all of that. Like that's different from the argument that, third parties will siphon votes. This was different. This was, he's not qualified. He's a clown. So, these are part of the troll farms. So I called a few of these people out as racist. And my point is, it is racist to say that if you don't have anything to back it up. And the idea of him going to the Democrats just makes no sense to me. And I think there's a racial piece behind that too. And I want to end with this thought. They are pissed off. The white power structure, the white supremacist power structure, which runs the Democratic Party. And also it runs the Republican Party as well. But the one that runs the Democratic Party is pissed off that Cornel West won't dance for them. Because that's what they are expecting. And I use those words because, here's a man who talks a lot about the history of oppression and white supremacy in this country. And I think that, to me, makes his candidacy even more relevant, that he knows exactly what they're expecting him to do. And when asked, he laughs. That takes strength and courage and a really excellent sense of humor. So that's it. I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, well said. It's good to be back on YouTube. I'm glad that we had around we had like 1K viewers between YouTube and Rumble, and we maintained that for quite a bit of the show. So I'm glad that we're back on YouTube strong, and I'm also glad that people who found us on Rumble are sticking around because we're pulling a decent amount on Rumble now. So I'm glad I have both backups because we're here for now, but who knows how long that's going to be. So make sure you guys click the bell so you guys get notifications. Support us on Patreon. That'll help support our labor, like Aaron and others that help our graphics that you see here. So with that said, I see you guys around. Have a good one.